My entitled friend refuses to pay me back for any of the stuff that her dog ruined at my house. Because after she left her dog unattended for nearly 10 days, locked up in our guest bedroom, that dog literally went to the bathroom everywhere, forcing me to replace my couch, my mattress, and even my carpets. But despite the mounting cost of everything I have to replace, my friend refuses to take responsibility for the utter damage that she caused. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my childhood best friend and I live in different countries. And we have a small tradition where she travels to spend Christmas with me every year. I help with money for plane tickets and she stays at my house where I also provide food. Last Christmas she came, but this time she brought her dog, as she got a puppy in January of 2024. I then asked her if it was already trained and she told me that it was. I also let her know that I don't like pets on my beds or couch and asked if I needed to buy something for her dog to sleep in. Well, she told me the dog will be okay with a pillow beside her bed. I also bought some cleaning supplies and I left it in the guest bedroom that she could use if she needed it. Unfortunately, when she arrived, I noticed that the dog was absolutely untrained. Now, I was trying not to be a jerk about it, and I was just trying to enjoy our time together, but I told her that she needed to take her dog out often because she wasn't doing it. Like, for example, the day she arrived, she said she was too tired and the dog didn't need it. Then on the second day, it was too cold to walk outside. And on the third day, we have plans. So she left the dog locked in the room all day. She was here for 10 days. And the dog was taken outside for walks maybe 5 times. And one of those times was by me and the other was by my husband. The dog slept on the bed, the couch, and left hairs everywhere, jumping on people all the time, and it was biting. But I started to notice a strong smell coming from the guest bedroom. Well, to make a long story short, the carpet, a couch, and bed mattresses are absolutely ruined by the smell of urine, and it is disgusting. I tried different cleaning methods, but it smells really bad. I then talked to my husband and we decided that we needed to replace everything. I was then texting my friend and I let her know that I would need to replace everything because of the strong smell. Well, she stopped replying the moment I told her, and for 2 days she was radio silent, which is weird because we are always texting memes or random stuff all the time. And to be honest, I was waiting for her to apologize for the trouble, but I got nothing from her. Now, this is when I may be the jerk, but I got really mad at her for deciding to ghost me instead of using her big girl words. I texted her a picture of the shopping cart of everything that we needed to replace, and I even told her the total of the stuff her dog ruined and that we needed to buy. And then I asked her how much she thought she could help us out with in terms of like paying back for what she destroyed. Well, she read my message, it went silent for 4 hours, and then she replied saying that I was tacky for asking money from someone that, according to her, was just a guest in my house. It was back and forth with her telling me that she didn't think the smell was that bad because she cleaned everything just like she cleaned her own house, that the dog in her house behaves perfectly fine, so maybe it was just my house. But I told her it smelled really bad. She then asked me, well, if someone goes to your house and a child breaks something, would you be calling them back asking for money? And I responded back by saying, well, I would at least expect an apology. She then says to me, so this is what it's about. You want me to beg for forgiveness for something a dog cannot control? But I just simply told her, well, maybe you should try to not be a horrible dog owner. So seriously, am I the jerk in the way that I handled this situation? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, this is not your fault at all. You are completely justified for being pissed off about this. This lady literally left that dog in a locked room for 10 days and only walked that dog, what, 5 times? It's like, are you kidding me right now? That dog needs to be let out probably like 3 times or more a day. Like, did she really think that dog was gonna be okay as a puppy, locked up in a room with nowhere to go and nowhere to use the bathroom? Like, seriously, this is so messed up. And you know for a fact that she is absolutely guilty of like not doing anything to take care of this. She probably walked out of your house and knew immediately like, oh my gosh, this is really bad. And from the sounds of it, she's willing to ruin your friendship instead of fixing this and being like, oh, I'm sorry, I messed up. Here, let me send you some money. Because yes, she is the jerk in this situation. And the fact that she's not trying to like fix this in any kind of way, in my opinion, shows exactly the kind of person that she is. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for leaving my aunt's house after failing to convince her that she is being scammed? Because right now my mom's upset with me and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old male and my mom asked me to talk to my aunt about something. She said that my aunt is being scammed, but it's not a romance scam though. Instead, she's convinced she's talking to her favorite author who needs someone to pay her bills for her while she works on a new book. Mom said that since my aunt has no children of her own, phone, and I'm the closest thing that she has to a son, she might listen to me. Well, I dropped by. I asked how she's doing, and then I told her that my mom told me about what's going on. My aunt muttered something about her meddling older sisters before telling me that she appreciates my concern, but there is nothing to worry about. I told her that her favorite author sold more than 20 million copies in the United States alone and had her works translated into more than 40 languages, meaning that she doesn't need anyone paying her bills for her. And even though I said that, my aunt still wouldn't listen. But I did not immediately give up. I told her I care about her and I don't want to see her scammed, but she insisted that it's not a scam. She just made a bunch of posts on social media about the books, and the author DM'd her asking for money. But I told her that's exactly how these celebrity catfishes operate, and I even showed her examples of it on YouTube, but she refused to watch any of the videos. After half an hour, I said, okay, I'm going home now, see you later. And when my mom asked me why I came home so early, I told her that I love my aunt, but I don't know how I can convince someone who doesn't want to be convinced. She said I shouldn't have given up so easily on someone that I love. Well, fast forward, and I called my aunt, and I repeated the point about the number of books the author sold, and she said the author told her that she made bad investments. I then told my aunt that even if that were the case, the authors get advance fees, so they won't starve while writing their books. Considering her favorite author has appeared on the New York Times bestseller list several times, she can probably expect a sizable advance. Then I told my aunt that if she still doesn't believe me since she sees me as a kid, we can go to the bank and talk to the people there, or even the cops. I also told her that I can contact the author. I've looked up her official website and Facebook, so I can message her in order to ask for direct confirmation. Well, my aunt told me not to do anything yet and that she will think about it. I will talk to her later and just give her time to think about it for now. But seriously, am I the jerk in this situation for not staying longer the first time? Because right now, I'm not sure what's gonna happen. No, you're not the jerk here. Your mom is completely wrong. If I had a family member who was not listening to anything I say after half an hour, and they're denying evidence or any kind of proof that this is a scam, at that point I would be like, okay, whatever, I'm giving up and I'm leaving. And I just can't stand when people are that stubborn, because it's like, think about this for a second. We're talking about a famous author. They've probably made millions of dollars off of all those books. So there's no way in the world they're ever going to you and being like, oh, I need some money, help me pay my bills. Like, no person in media is ever going to go to their fans like that unless they are actually scamming you. And I know we're all thinking of many examples in media and just pop culture who have done that, and it really is unfortunate. So no, you're not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. My dad is constantly getting me sick because he does nothing to prevent spreading his germs. And at this point, I'm honestly frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My father is the kind of person who does not care whether he passes on his bugs to you or not. And mind you, I have a great relationship with him and I love him despite what he does. To provide context, ever since I was a kid, I have suffered from chronic issues with my sinuses. I've had surgery for that, but it just doesn't seem to have worked. Anytime I get a cold, I feel miserable for almost 2 weeks. I become a mucus production machine, and that mucus gets infected, and I end up getting a pretty bad sinus infection that only clears after a course of 10 days of antibiotics and steroids. Every time that goes by, my infections are getting worse in severity and length, and I get approximately 5 to 6 episodes like that every single year. Now here's the real issue. At least half of these episodes are a consequence of my father getting sick and spreading his cold to me. My father gets sick often because he does not seem to care that he gets colds, because his are usually not very bad, and he makes no effort to avoid getting sick. Well, one time when he was sick, instead of telling my mom that he was sick, my father denies getting sick and refuses to go to the doctor. He will not take cold medicine or put on a mask, etc., and he just acts completely normal being around anyone, hence why he's spreading his virus. And then when I get sick, which is very bad due to my nose issues, he does not acknowledge that he passed the virus onto me and claims that I must have gotten the virus from somebody else. I have tried to explain my situation, ask him to please try not to get sick in the first place, and if he is sick, please tell me so that I can protect myself. But even then, he still just does not care. Well, I'm writing this as I have another one of those sinus episodes that honestly is not going away despite medicine, and this has prevented me from sleeping for 3 nights in a row. Now at this point, what options do I have beyond moving out? What do you think of my father's attitude? Am I making this too much of a big deal? Or am I in the wrong for acting the way that I am? What should I do? Oh man, this is so frustrating. There's nothing more annoying than someone who's blatantly sick, being incredibly lazy, and then getting everybody else sick. And it's like, wait a second, I know for a fact I didn't get this from anybody else. And sure, you could get sick from anybody, but seriously, if I'm willing to bet, it probably was the guy who was sick and sniffling all day in your house. So yeah, unfortunately, it sounds like moving out might be your only option, but I know if I was in your shoes, I would be talking to my dad and be like, listen, I love you, but I just can't keep doing this. You getting sick affects me negatively because then I get sick and it is so much worse. And you would think that he would know this after you've had surgery about this, because in my opinion, his attitude is so dismissive, and it's honestly just so unfair that you have to deal with this in the first place. Am I the jerk for leaving my sister-in-law's house on Christmas, all because there was someone there that me and my husband definitely did not want to see? And despite the fact that we tried to do this in a subtle manner, my sister-in-law's husband cussed me and my husband out as we were leaving, and now I am blown away and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I would really like to get some insight from everybody on what happened at our family Christmas. On the 23rd, my sister-in-law had messaged me and told me that they were throwing a small Christmas party, and she told me that her sister-in-law and her in-laws and her parents are all going to be joining them, and they would really like for us to come along as well. Very specifically, she named everybody who was going to be there, and this will be relevant later on. Later that night, I showed my husband the text messages and said it would be really nice if we joined them for Christmas, as his whole family doesn't get along, and it would be nice for his mom to see at least some of the siblings interacting. On Christmas Day, I woke up early to make some things to bring over to their house and wrapped up the gifts that I had prepared for everybody. As we approached their house, we saw a vehicle that belonged to a person that me and my husband both don't get along with, as this is someone we've had major problems with in the past. I told my husband that maybe it's just a car that looks like his, because his sister knows that we would not come over if we knew that this person was going to be there. We decided to walk in and give the gifts and say hi to everybody, and both agreed that if said person was invited, that we would just come up to his sister and brother-in-law and let them know that we are actually going to be leaving. Well, unfortunately for us, he was there, and we didn't want to make a big scene, so I came up to his sister in the kitchen and I said that I'm really sorry that we're leaving, and that if I knew that he was invited, we would have just told her right away that we weren't going to come. And I felt very bad for making the situation uncomfortable. She looked really disappointed but understood and decided to walk us to the door. Now at this point, everything was fine. That is until her husband ran in and started yelling and cussing and calling all of us names. This was pretty out of character for him, but also very inappropriate nonetheless, especially because in my opinion, we didn't do anything wrong by leaving Christmas when we are uncomfortable with being around someone that we don't like, and we wanted to avoid any conflict and not make a scene. Well, he kept screaming and calling us names and telling us that he can invite whoever he wants to his house, which we both never told him that he couldn't. The screaming continued, and his kids, in-laws, and parents all came along to see what was going on, with me and my husband just quietly putting our shoes on. He then slammed the door in our face. So right now I'm curious, does this make me the jerk for leaving Christmas when we were unaware that a person we do not get along with was invited to this as well, especially when his sister went out of her way to text me a list of everybody who is gonna be there, but somehow leaving this person out? What should I do? Okay, this seems really set up in my opinion. It almost seems like they brought that person on purpose just so there would be some kind of confrontation, or as some kind of excuse for this brother-in-law to finally freak out on you guys. Like seriously, this seems really sketchy and I don't like what's happening here. Like why would they send an entire list of everybody that's gonna be there, but then conveniently leave out the person who causes a lot of problems in your life? Like that seems super sketchy and I just don't think this has like good intentions. So no, you're not the jerk at all for leaving this party, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing, regardless of what the sister or the husband had to say about it. I'm worried that I might be overreacting after my dad basically let his girlfriend move in after I said I wasn't okay with it, because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 17-year-old female and I've been upset over the past month since my dad's girlfriend moved in. My parents divorced a few years ago, and since then my dad has started dating a new woman. A few months ago, he asked if she could move in, and he told me he was asking because I was the most important thing to him and he would never allow her to move in without my okay. Now, I've only known her for a little less than a year and I'm going through a lot of stress with the end of high school, so I said I was not okay with it, but that she could move in when I was going off to college. He pushed the question a little more, but eventually said okay. Throughout the next few months, he continuously asked me if she could move in. I continued to listen to his point, but I never changed my mind. I knew that having her move in would be a huge change for me, as I've never had any siblings or permanent residents in my house besides my mom and dad. I don't dislike her, but having my space be invaded and learning to live with someone that I felt like I didn't even know that well was bound to be a stressor. It was also a big deal to me because my life is already changing preparing for college. In my mind, I've been preparing to go off to college for a while, and having something like this happen before that big change has thrown me off. I also didn't want her to move in because I don't like her family. Her youngest son is a handful and hard to deal with, and now comes home from college to my house on some weekends and holidays. Her second oldest is kind of a jerk, even though I don't have to deal with them that much. Her oldest daughter is actually nice, and I do like her, but I really would rather not be associated with her whole family. I'm having a lot of trouble dealing with them being forced into my family because not only do I not like them, but I already have a family. My dad also recently tricked me into coming to her family's Christmas, which she hosted at our house, by telling me that we were going to spend the day together, even suggesting options like restaurants and activities. It felt so strange being the stranger at someone else's Christmas in my own house. I've started to come to the conclusion that I will need to move out because it has caused me a lot of stress to live in this house at this time. But my dad and his girlfriend are acting as if I'm overreacting. It breaks my heart to leave my pets and the house I have memories in, but I'm honestly not sure what else I could possibly do. Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from here. This honestly really does seem very annoying. There's changes happening in your life and it seems like you're not totally receptive to it. And trust me, I completely get that. I understand that you're not willing to let someone else into your house, especially when that person is not your mom. So hopefully this all works out in some kind of way, and hopefully you're able to find some kind of solution. Because while I don't think you're completely overreacting, I do think you have the right to have a steady and stable home. And hopefully something like that can happen in the future. An entitled old jerk loses his mind after I try to let the women standing behind me get off the plane before we do. So I decided to get some petty revenge by not only waiting for everybody to go ahead of us, but also denying this guy any opportunity to pass me up in the process. Here's what happened. So I just landed from my layover and I was in the very back of the plane, second from last row. The back was empty. I had the row to myself, and across the aisle was the older jerk of this story who also had the row to himself, literally watching the news the entire time. And this was the same deal in the last row. Two women each having their own row. Well, we land, the seatbelt sign comes off, and people start to stand. I then stand up and he's still sitting. One of the women stands up and lines up behind me, and that's where I start to hear him go crazy. He says out loud, "Where do you think you're going? No one's getting off yet. Sit down and stop crowding us." The woman apologizes and says, "I'm really sorry, I just need to use the bathroom." He then mutters something unintelligible and just acts like a complete jerk. I then tell her she can go ahead of me, and that's when the guy leapt up and grabbed both seats, physically blocking her from moving. He goes, "No, no, no. We get off row by row. We don't go ahead of people and we don't push and shove. We get off row by row." I then start saying, "Okay, calm down, buddy. It's not that big of a deal." But he just kept repeating, "We go row by row." He brings his guard stance down and she pushes past him. And right then, this guy looks like he's about to keel over from anger. Now the lineup is just me and then him, as well as the other woman behind us who looks disgruntled. So I say, "Okay, buddy, calm down," again, and we just start walking. 2 rows ahead of us is a couple still sitting down, getting their baby packed up. Now they clearly have a few minutes to go before they're ready. So I stop behind them and I do the same stance that he just did. I say out loud, "You guys take your time." I parked right there and I made sure this entitled old jerk wasn't going anywhere. Now the dad says it's okay and they're going to be just a moment, but I say very loudly, "Oh no, we get off row by row." That's right, row by row. You guys go right ahead. The couple had definitely heard our spat and knew exactly what was going on. And as a result, we waited a solid 3 to 4 minutes until they finally got off. But the fun didn't stop there, because as we got further ahead, I did it again with another woman who was waiting for the flight attendant to bring her bag. This lady was more confused when I insisted that we wait, but she went along with it and I just kept saying very loudly that we get off this plane row by row. Now the first time this entitled old jerk said, "This is stupid," but I just said back to him row by row, and the second time he was silent. But I know for a fact that I certainly wasted a good 5 or 6 minutes of his life, all because he couldn't afford to let those women go ahead of us. I love this story because this is one of those you mess around and you find out. Like seriously, this is not that big of a deal. You're all in the back of the plane as it is, so you know for a fact you're going to be waiting pretty much all day to even get off that plane. So for him to be like, "No, no one's getting ahead of me," it's like, dude, you're not in first class. You're literally in the back of the plane acting like an idiot, holding up 2 women who clearly could have just gone ahead of you and it wouldn't have caused any problems. This guy was acting like he was some kind of VIP. Like, that is so weird. So seriously, I love the fact that you got revenge on this guy because the way he was acting was incredibly inappropriate. My friend deliberately disappeared from my life after graduation, all after they used me so that they wouldn't get in trouble with school administration. So in retaliation, I decided to get some petty revenge by literally ruining their Spotify playlist in a way that is completely unrepairable. Here's what happened. Okay, for the sake of this story, let's call my friend in question Bailey. Bailey is not their real name. So I was friends with Bailey throughout most of college. We were pretty close and would always hang out. I'd drive them places, we would organize and throw parties together, which will be important later on. I would help their partner out with a place to stay or rides whenever they wanted, etc. So I think it's safe safe to say that I thought we were pretty good friends. Sometime during our final year, Bailey, along with a few others, was a part of a long and pretty nasty conflict with other people I was acquainted with. This conflict ended up being escalated to the school administration, and they ended up calling in everyone named as a potential witness to testify so that they could have all sides and all info to make a decision regardless of the situation. Throughout all of this, Bailey would check in on me and encourage me to speak out, remind me of things that had happened, and made sure our story stayed consistent. Throughout this, I felt like I was being a good friend by speaking the truth and defending my friends from attacks while making sure the other individuals involved would be held accountable for whatever happened. Well, fast forward to the week leading up to graduation, and I was reaching out to a lot of people so that I could get a meal in with them before we all left for good. I tried reaching out to Bailey and the group that we were a part of so that we could get a meal together, but I got no answer. After insisting, I was told that one of them, not the friend in question, wasn't allowed to hang out with people of my gender because their partner didn't allow it. So I didn't press the matter further, and I decided that I'd just try and see these people individually at some point. And not to spoil it, but that never happened. And the same thing happened with graduation photos. I didn't get any with Bailey or that group. A few days after graduation, I went to send Bailey something on social media, only to realize I was blocked by them on everything. After talking to some other friends who had been abroad, they confirmed that Bailey told people after graduation that they were going to use me to gain leverage during their troubles with the school administration, and then they were going to block me, which was shocking to me because this person never showed any signs of disliking me, nor did anything happen for them to feel that way about me. All of this leads to today when I found an old device I haven't used in 3 years. It turns out Bailey had logged into Spotify on this device of mine for an event but never logged out. And after all this time, I finally got a chance to enact some sort of revenge. So I ended up deleting all of their playlists and unfollowing any and all artist playlists that they had saved. By the time I was done, they had no music left and had logged out of their account as to prevent anybody from knowing it was me. So sure, it is kind of petty, but you know what? Bailey screwed me over in a serious way. And while I am still upset about it, I'm really glad that I no longer have to be around you. Oh man, Bailey sounds like a terrible person. They literally used you in a way that honestly is so inappropriate. And honestly, the way this ended is kind of like the way it always ends in other situations. You don't really get that satisfying ending, and you just try to move on from the crappy situation. So I think it's fantastic that you got some kind of revenge on this person, because the way they acted towards you, in my opinion, is incredibly inappropriate. A crazy Karen tries to steal my doctor's appointment spot. I scheduled an appointment at a CVS Minute Clinic to see the doctor. When my time came, the doctor popped out of her office to grab me, and some absolute crazy Karen came from seemingly nowhere and intercepted the doctor, demanding that her child be seen for a strep test. The doctor said she was already with the patient, which was me, and asked if the Karen had made an appointment. The Karen angrily replied,
"No, but it's an emergency."
The doctor told her that all the appointment spots were filled for the day, and I swear, this lady acted like the doctor was leaving her child to bleed out in the streets.
What? You're just not gonna help my child then? Where are we supposed to go?
This went back and forth for quite some time, with me getting progressively more angry because it was my time spot and I had other stuff to do. Eventually, someone else, I don't know exactly what their position was, maybe it was the pharmacist, came up to handle the Karen, and the poor doctor nudged her out of the way of the door and ushered me in, before closing it super fast. I get it sucks when your kid is sick, but strep isn't remotely serious. From the look of the kid, he didn't even have it. I've had strep several times, and the kid looked and sounded fine. If I had $1 for every Karen I've ever had to put up with in my life, I would probably be a millionaire. If you've ever worked in a customer service situation, then you know that some of these Karens can be absolutely ruthless. And I like to look at Karen as a gender-neutral term. There are a lot of guys out there that act insane as well. It's the kind of person that just does not care about other people's needs or their wants. It's all about them and their disgusting snot-nosed kids. And this lady is no exception. I'm personally really happy that this lady wasn't able to jump in front of the original poster and take their doctor's appointment. But it doesn't surprise me that this Karen tried to insert themselves and sneak one past the doctor. Thankfully, the doctor and the pharmacist were able to handle this with ease and professionalism, because if that was me, I probably would have lost my cool. And I mean, come on, this lady was freaking out over strep throat. Strep throat is not that serious. I mean, it can become serious, but most situations are just going to be mild cases of strep throat. And if this lady is really that worried about her kid, and if she really thinks it's an emergency, she should go to the hospital, not try to butt in line at a CVS. There's probably an urgent care right next door that she could easily go to. I bet she doesn't want to go to the emergency room because she cares more about money than she does about her kid. And that, in all honesty, is probably the most telling sign that you're dealing with an absolute full-fledged Karen. My boyfriend gets angry when I'm sad. My boyfriend and I have been together for about a year and a half now. Today I felt very down because of what's happening in the world. I was sad and scared. Normally I have the tendency to keep stuff like this to myself and not talk about it. Today was different. So my boyfriend came home from work and I had already started cooking. We were chopping vegetables and I said to him, "My heart feels so heavy today. I have world pain," with a sad voice. Not angry, not attacking, just sad. And he said, "Is it because of Ukraine?" And I said yes. He didn't say anything else, just try to comfort me, which I was okay with. I didn't get upset but stayed more quiet than normal. So we kept on cooking and I also did a bit of small talk. I didn't even think my mood could be a problem for him since it had nothing to do with him. It was fine for me. I wasn't very talkative, but that was all. That's why I was so surprised when suddenly he said, "Are you going to be like this for the entire evening and not talk?" in a very angry tone, which made me really upset. He told me I'm treating him like garbage because I'm not talking to him. He even told me that if someone else saw my behavior, they would agree with him. I'm really hurt and upset because it's not the first time that I get the impression that he can't handle my emotions whenever they are not cheerful or happy. I can't just be myself in a safe space without him getting upset, and especially because I'm not a person that opens up easily. Him basically punishing me for opening up is horrible. We're not talking at the moment and I don't know how to explain myself or how to change this. I already tried to tell him how I feel, but all he said was that I was in a terrible mood and treating him like garbage last night, which I find so unfair. How can I tell him that me being sad is not a reason to get upset? Sounds like the man in this situation really needs to learn how to read the room. I mean, someone else's bad day is not a shot at you. I mean, this is really childish. If anything, this is honestly very toxic. In the story, the lady even says that the man is 48 years old. I mean, how emotionally immature can you be where you can't even handle somebody's bad day? It seems like he's being super selfish right now. People have other emotions besides happiness. That's life. And there should be room in a relationship for all parties to have emotions and emotional capacity to deal with everybody else's feelings. I mean, this just sounds really abusive. What a terrible place to be. I honestly really feel for this lady. Don't teach your cat to turn off the lights or she will use it against you. I like to read in bed, but I do not have a lamp. When I'm ready to sleep, I have to get up and turn the light off. This is not ideal, as it wakes me up right as I'm trying to go to sleep. Coincidentally, I'm really into training my cat. She knows how to high five, wave, jump through a hoop, etc. So when I ran into the light problem, my first thought was, I'll train the cat to do it. Training her was hard work for both of us. She had to stand on her hind legs on my desk to hit the light switch, and that kind of thing doesn't come naturally to cats. But after 2 weeks of training, she could consistently turn off the light when I asked her to. This is where things went downhill. I had spent 2 weeks teaching my cat that every time she turned off the light, I would give her a treat. Pretty great, right? So it only makes sense that when she decided that turning off the light was the solution to any problem under the sun. I'm reading and not giving her enough pets, turns off the light. I'm in a work meeting and not responding to her meows, she turns off the light. Anytime my cat does not approve of what I'm doing or feels she's being ignored, she turns off the light. Basically, I had to untrain her by stopping the treats and not giving her attention when she flipped the switch. Very sad because for one, it was a cool trick, and for two, untraining was confusing the poor kitty. But I'm happy to report that she has finally stopped leaving me in darkness every time she wants attention. I've now moved on to harmless tricks, hoping that eventually I can teach her how to play blackjack. I guess there's worse things you could teach the cat, like how to open the door. I know some people who own some cats that they can open up doors and get in places you don't want them to get into, and it's an absolute nightmare. Having them turn on and off a lamp is not that bad when compared to the invasion of privacy that someone will have to endure with a door opening cat. It's really cute, and I think it's really funny, but I can understand the frustration. And trying to untrain that cat from doing that kind of behavior must have been a nightmare. But from the sounds of it, the person telling this story needs to get into cat training. The fact that they were able to train their cat to do that is pretty cool. But I'm predicting that if they're going to teach their cat how to slap objects, pretty soon the cat's going to start slapping them. I accidentally found my boyfriend's engagement ring. My boyfriend knows I'm a clean freak, and I'm constantly cleaning everything inside and out, even the bedside drawers. My boyfriend loves when I'm reorganizing his stuff, as long as I don't throw things away without his permission. So I'm cleaning and reorganizing things when I opened up his bedside drawer to organize it again for the 80th time. Inside, I find this huge box after pulling everything out, and I'm thinking in my head it's got to be earrings or something. So I open it up and it's an engagement ring. In my defense, it literally looks like all those boxes that you would find earrings in. So I wouldn't think that there was a ring specifically in there. If anything, a necklace or some other large jewelry. The box itself was really big, so it kind of threw me off. Anyways, is. He's really good at surprises, and I love being surprised. Now I feel so bad I found it. I put it back immediately and left his drawer a mess so he doesn't know I found it. But I most definitely killed the surprise of not knowing he's planning this and what the ring looks like. We have dated for 4 years, but I didn't have a clue he was planning on it anytime soon. For now, I'm just going to try to pretend like I don't know what's happening. This is a classic case of the wrong place at the wrong time. I think it's a really cute story that they're planning on getting married, but it's rough that she found out before he was going to tell her. But in all honesty, this is 100% on the boyfriend for not finding a better place to hide it. He knows from this story that she reorganizes and cleans everything. Why would he pick the most obvious spot to put an engagement ring, like his bedside drawer? That is not a good spot. You gotta lock that away, man. You can't just leave that out in the open. Of course she's gonna find it. The other side of me is thinking, well, maybe he wanted her to find it, so maybe he left it there on purpose. But it's such a weird play. Why on earth would he do that? It seems like to me that the boyfriend was just absolutely careless with this engagement ring, and it's his own fault for letting this fall into his girlfriend's hands. And while she's super excited to get married to her boyfriend, at the end of the day, he kind of ruined the surprise on his own without actually doing anything. But I'm sure this will work out, and it sounds like the girlfriend's still really excited about it. Am I the jerk for calling a coworker by the wrong name for 7 months? I started at a new job in August of last year. It's a small company of 5 full-time staff members and 1 part-timer. I am the newest full-time employee by about 7 years, and the youngest by at least 20. I say this all to mean that as a naturally anxious person, I in no way, shape, or form have felt any ill will, false superiority, or any of those other things towards any of my coworkers. I try to keep to myself and be as least bothersome as possible, knowing I am an outsider to their system. I speak quietly and try to be as polite as possible, and have occasionally shared drinks or parts of my lunch I thought they'd enjoy, trying to be perceived as both out of the way and friendly in case hard times come to our business and layoffs end up being on the table. I thought I had been succeeding on this front until a few days ago. For the first several months at the company, I only really interacted with 3 coworkers on a daily basis, and I would speak to our graphic designer named Mandy maybe once a week or so. I have no idea how or why or when, but at some point, I messed up her name and called her Mary instead. When she didn't correct me on it, my brain instantly decided her name was Mary from then on. Whenever I spoke to coworkers about Mary, nobody corrected me. In all of my conversations with her, which usually began with me calling her Mary, I was never corrected. Similarly, my brain never clicked and called me a moron when those same coworkers would talk about Mandy. Fast forward to a month ago, and they're beginning to have me train on some of Mandy's tasks to lighten her workload. Once or multiple times a week, I interact with her for longer periods of time, and I somehow still didn't catch on until I saw her business cards a few days ago. I realized with horror that I had been calling Mandy Mary for 7 months. I know it upsets people when you call them by the wrong name repeatedly, as I used to have a teacher in middle school that called me by the wrong name all year. So if I had been corrected a single time, I would have been mortified and corrected myself immediately. Now I'm not sure I shouldn't quit and find a nice hole to die in. So much for trying to be liked by my coworkers. I haven't apologized yet because I don't know how to at this point. And even though I've tried committing Mandy to my brain, on occasion, Mary still slips out. I'm getting better about it, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like enough. I'm just confused as to why nobody has tried to correct me this whole time. I feel like such an idiot. I want to make it up to her and apologize, unless it would somehow make things worse. But I really don't know how to do so without making it weird. I was thinking maybe a cake and an apology note, but I don't want to seem like I think it's silly or somehow worth celebrating. What should I do? This is tragic because there's nothing worse than calling someone by the wrong name and then that person never correcting you for 7 months. I mean, how did nobody say anything for 7 months? That is such a long time. If someone was calling me by the wrong name, I would probably correct them right away and just say, hey, it's this instead of this. But to just let it slide for 7 months, ooh, brutal. I can understand where this person's coming from. I would absolutely want to quit and not be there anymore. How horribly embarrassing is that? And why would the coworkers not say anything? That's actually horribly toxic. It's either they blatantly just didn't say anything because they just didn't care, or they willingly didn't say anything and probably made fun of this person behind their back. I mean, I can see both things happening. It just really sucks that they had to be on the receiving end of this. Am I the jerk for not telling my husband I won the lottery? The lottery winning took place back in August 2014. My husband and I were married in October 2014. It wasn't a fortune, but enough to make a difference. After taxes, it came out to right about $480,000. Most people would be over the moon, but I panicked. I didn't want our life to be turned upside down because we had extra money now. I was still legally single at the time, and so I was able to accept it anonymously without the need to tell anyone else. So I didn't tell anyone else. Not a single soul. Not my husband, my parents, siblings, best friends, anyone. Only the state and federal governments. On top of that, my husband has a tendency to spend things we don't need and that aren't going to benefit us in the long run. So I didn't want our money to be blown quickly on stupid stuff like cards and clothes. I opened a new bank account with a national credit card union and put the check in. I got started with a financial advisor by the name of Keith, who guided me into investing in local businesses and real estate. And that's that. It's been sitting there since. Flash forward to today. I'm doing dishes, getting ready to start making dinner, and my phone rings. I can't get to it, but I figure I'll call them back. Then I get a text. No big deal. I'll get to it in a minute. But my husband came into the kitchen and glanced at my phone to let me know who texted me and called me, which he always does if my hands are full. It's my financial advisor, Keith. He called and texted me to let me know my account just hit $1 million after one of the energy companies I invested in soared recently. My husband is stunned. He has no clue what to even say, staring at me until he says, "We have $1 million?" I was so flushed, but finally just sat him down and explained the situation. He's very mad at me for never telling him about this. He asks if my family knows, and I tell him that no one knows except the IRS and my financial advisor. It took him a few hours to finally be able to really talk to me. At the end of the silence, he told me he's proud of me for investing into our future, but he needs a few days to clear his head because he feels like I hid a huge part of myself from him. We might just need to take a vacation now. This is a hilarious story because personally, I would not be upset if my wife came to me and said, "Hey, we're millionaires." Like, that's awesome. That's probably the coolest text I could possibly look for. I think it's silly that the guy in this situation is somehow upset over this. Like, dude, your wife is awesome. She made bank and she prepared for your future. The wife goes on to say that they already make good money from both of the jobs that they have, so they're not hurting at all. This is literally just icing on the cake. This is like retirement funds. These people are set for life if things go as planned. I think it's such a cool story, and it's something that you would hope would happen to you. I don't think the lady's the jerk in this situation because I honestly would have done the same thing. I would have done whatever it takes to make sure that my finances are taken care of, and she did everything correct. So good on her for doing this, because honestly, this is going to benefit her and her family in the long run. A crazy Karen chased us with her car. This was like 2 years ago in the fall season. I had recently turned 18 and my friend was 19 at the time. In my country, you have to be 18 before you're able to take the license. And at the time, I had a moped to transport myself to and from school and work. So me and my friend were planning on hanging out that day after school. When the next time came, we took my moped and went off. We lived in a small town, so the roads were small and the max speed was between 40 to 50 kilometers an hour. Nothing was out of the ordinary until a white Volvo was driving very close to us all of a sudden. I yelled to my friend to look behind us carefully so we didn't lose our balance, and she could see that it was a woman holding up her phone, and I could see her holding something in the side mirror. So I sped up a little and she was still keeping up on us. Mind you, she was swerving a bit since she was paying attention to her phone more than her car. I realized that we weren't getting away from her, so I let off the gas and we slowed down substantially. She almost rammed into us, but surprisingly, she found the brake and slowly minimized her speed, but was still incredibly close. Our turn came and we had to stop because of the oncoming traffic, and she was still incredibly close. I could still see her holding up her phone. She was obviously recording us, so I flipped her off. When we did take the turn, I sped up as fast as I could to get away from her, but she gassed her car, not caring about oncoming traffic, and they honked at her. My friend was laughing. I was laughing because even though she's an idiot and chasing us, it was quite hilarious because we did nothing wrong. We had to make another turn and she slowed down a bit, still behind us, and we clearly saw that she held her phone up and pressed it against the passenger window. We both flipped her off. Funny thing was that she didn't see where she was going, so her car swayed a little bit. Complete moron. What I think she was trying to record was my friend, because the helmet she had on was a bicycle helmet. But where I come from, wearing a bicycle helmet is approved on a sitting moped. It's not a normal bicycle helmet, it's more thick and covers the whole head, and not just the upper head, but also down by the ears, which is approved. Thankfully, I never saw her again, but we did see a car a lot like hers driving around my neighborhood a while back. She couldn't find my moped either because I always parked it behind our house in the backyard. Thankfully, I never dealt with her again. What an absolute psychopath. Mopeds and motorcycles are some of the most vulnerable driving apparatuses on the road. You are completely exposed to the elements with just a helmet and the collective trust of everybody around you. So the fact that this lady was riding this person's bumper, trying trying to get a picture of them because of some weird helmet they had on is just crazy. This lady could have seriously hurt them, not to mention everybody else around her. She could have swerved onto oncoming traffic. Absolutely insane. I'm sure she would have wished she had put her phone down if she actually did end up hurting somebody. I was late for class, but Murphy's Law decided to make me even more late. This last year, I've been teaching Spanish as a volunteer a few days a week. To do so, I have to go to a nearby town, but that's not an issue since the bus that gets me there stops just in front of my door at 9:20 and arrives at the cultural center at 9:50. So I'm always 10 minutes early to talk to my colleagues and get ready. Now, last week, I went to the bus stop like always, waited for the bus like always, and when it approached, I signed for him to stop like always. I saw the guy looking at me, using the turn signals to stop and going away, just like that. When I recovered from my surprise, I started to think that the next bus wouldn't be here until 9:40 and I would be late. Unless I ran to the underground station 20 minutes away from my home and do a few transfers, then get in the line. Then I might get in time. There's also a bus that would take me to the station, but I didn't want to risk it. So I ran all the way and got there in just 15 minutes. The bus arrived there at the same time as me, but I didn't care that much because I could do it. So I jumped on the train. They just got to the station, and luckily, when doing the transfer to the train line, it was in the station too. I looked at the phone and saw that it was 9:45, and I was going to make it, but I texted my colleague saying that I might be a bit late just in case. So when I got out of the train to take the final transfer to the underground, I checked my jacket pockets as a reflex and found out the one where I always put my phone was empty and the zipper was open. So I jumped again in the train while the doors were closed and asked the guy that's sitting in the same spot as me if he saw something. Then we both crouched to look around, and that's when I felt something in my pants pocket. Yeah, I had the phone all along. So after apologizing for being an idiot, I got out in the next station to go back. I probably would have been on time if I didn't take the train and I had just taken the second bus in the beginning. Also, if I just knew my phone was in my pocket, it would have saved me the trouble of looking for a phone that wasn't missing. Finally, I got to my station, got to my destination without any more incidents, and got scolded by my students for being almost an hour late. The moral of the story: if something goes wrong, let it be. Trying to fix it will only make it worse. This is a classic case of if it can get worse, it definitely will get worse. And this just had a domino effect. The guy misses the train because the bus driver just, I don't know, didn't look at him, or maybe he just saw through him, and then he decides to try and take the train underground to get to his destination quicker, only to then lose his phone on the train and then have to look for it, only to then find out that his phone's in his pocket. And at the end of the day, he's already an hour late for his class. Not a fun way of starting your day. At the end of the day, sometimes the quickest path is just to go straight forward, accept your fate, and take the next bus. My future wife doesn't know how much money I make. I'm 37 and she is 34. We have been together for several years, and this fall we are supposed to get married. But our relationship is built on a single lie. I never once told her about my finances during the entire relationship. She has no idea how much I really make or how much I have, other than enough to support myself. She sometimes questions things I buy. The other day, I bought a $200 coffee maker to replace my Starbucks coffee, and she asked how I could afford it. I told her I got it on sale and it wasn't that much. This was obviously a lie. I have saved and invested for most of my life, and I plan to retire when I'm 45, which she doesn't know either. I have had big boy jobs for many years and want to transition to a non-career position. However, I am reluctant to tell her anything about this. I have an income that can be described as well off by local standards. She has no idea I have enough money to do whatever I want. I am afraid if she found out that I have hundreds of thousands of dollars split between multiple banks and even more in investments, she would be extremely disappointed that I projected myself in another way. I am not sure how this all plays out. Should I come clean and disclose my finances to her? Should I hire a lawyer? Or should I just keep lying and go ahead with the wedding in spite of what it might do to my relationship with her? This is a tricky one because I can see his apprehension in telling her. He obviously doesn't want to rock the boat with someone he's about to get married to, but at the same time, finances is an extremely important topic to have down before you get married. In most cases, they're probably going to combine finances where they both have just one bank account. In most cases. And so it's probably a little weird to drop on your future wife by saying, hey, I'm actually super loaded and I plan on retiring when I'm 45, whether you like it or not. It seems like this guy has not considered his wife in this equation in the slightest. It's awesome that he's rich and he's got a lot of money, but she should be the person to know about that. There's a chance that his future wife could be really hurt that he didn't say anything about this sooner. He obviously put a lot of work and thought and energy into his finances and planning the future he wanted, but he didn't really consider her at all. Marriage is about planning the future and growing old together and being there for each other. And it seems like she's just going to be at a huge disadvantage here, trying to mold to what this guy already worked out for the rest of his life. So yeah, Yeah, he needs to tell her like right away. You don't want to go into a marriage with any kind of lie lingering in the background, even if it's something that you should have told him but you didn't. My girlfriend breaks up with me on a monthly basis. I'm looking for some advice on what to do. As the title says, she breaks up with me and wants to get back together very frequently. Should I let this behavior continue? The last time she stormed out of my room is because I said a joke on how she smelled, and she didn't like it, to which I apologized immediately, but she said she will lose her self-worth if she stays with me after that. Things like this make me wonder what will happen if the relationship actually hit hard times in the future. I dropped her off at her house. She then called me last night and was telling me how I don't care about her, and if I did, I would have reached out to her. I told her that she was the one that ended it, and how people don't usually end relationships for reasons like this. She says that's the only way she knows how to react. Now what I want to know is, should I get back together with her and help her overcome this, or just stay broken up? She said she wants to start therapy to try and fix this issue of hers. Is it worth it to stay or still just to go? In all honesty, when he gets back together with her, she's just going to repeat the cycle again. So his best bet is just to get out, and to get out fast. She clearly has issues, and this is just not an appropriate way to react to anybody. I mean, he was clearly in this context just saying a joke about her, which people in relationships do, by the way, and she overreacted completely by saying that she wants to discontinue this relationship entirely. I mean, come on. If that's not an overreaction, I don't know what is. And good on her for wanting to go into therapy to try and fix her issues, but it sounds like this has been going on for a really long time. And I think if I was the guy in this situation, I would have to know when enough was enough. So it's really up to him. Does he want to try and help his girlfriend get the help she needs? Or does he want to find someone who's going to want to be with him and not break up with him once a month? I'll take the second choice if you ask me. I used coconut oil right before I used the toilet, and water from our bidet got everywhere. I bought a bidet online during the great toilet paper shortage of 2020. It was a cheap one that goes right into the line and isn't powered by anything, so no warm water. It seemed like a great idea at the time, but it got shoved into a corner and forgotten about. It would need an extra part before it could be installed. Only use cold water, and we never ran out of toilet paper, so it stayed in its box in the corner for nearly 2 years. I have Crohn's disease and psoriasis. Both are autoimmune disorders that can flare up for a number of reasons. My psoriasis has been under control until recently, when it flared up because of the immune response I had to my COVID vaccines. For the first time in my life, I got inverse psoriasis on my nether regions. Unfortunately, to add insult to injury, my Crohn's decided to flare up as well, so now I'm using the bathroom 6 to 12 times a day and wiping my butt raw every time. Fun times. But then I remembered the bidet in the corner. I got the extra hose from the hardware store, and my husband helped me install it about a month ago. Instant relief. I was so worried about the cold water being a shock, but it was wonderfully refreshing. It has a dial adjustment, but even on the lowest setting, it'll spray across the bathroom if there's no one there to deflect it back into the toilet. Even if you're off center just a little bit, the stream will shoot up behind or in front of you, so you have to be careful to adjust yourself properly before turning it on. I've been using it every time I use the toilet just to be sure I'm nice and clean down there. Since I have psoriasis and sensitive skin, I use coconut oil as lotion. When I was getting ready this morning, I lubed up from head to toe and got dressed as usual. Right before I headed downstairs, I decided that I should use the bathroom first. I finished doing my business, turn on the bidet on the middle setting, just a light stream to rinse a bit. As I turned it on, I go to scoop back a bit because I am lubed up like crazy from the coconut oil, and I slide all the way forward on the toilet and stop just barely before falling off. The bidet starts shooting water straight up and all over the toilet, the floor, my clothes, and even my hair. I'm able to get the bidet turned off in a matter of seconds, but my bathroom and I both look like we gave a toddler a bath. I had to dry the towel, the floor, and put the bath mats in the dryer. Then I had to change my clothes, dry off, and basically get ready for the day again. Yeah. Nothing like getting ready twice in the morning. Crohn's disease and psoriasis is a nasty combo, so it's understandable that they would use coconut oil to try and alleviate at least one of the problems. As an American, I haven't fully embraced the whole bidet thing, but I have international friends who absolutely swear by them, so clearly there's something to it, but I personally can't get behind it. It's a little weird, it sounds uncomfortable, but apparently it's fantastic. But I guess if you have Crohn's disease and you're going to be on the toilet a lot anyways, a bidet is probably your best friend. I knew a guy who was on the toilet all the time because of Crohn's disease. It is no joke. And it can be quite miserable. So if this provides some kind of relief, then good on you. Go for it. My girlfriend refused to get me toilet paper when it counted the most, so I broke up with her. My girlfriend and I have been together for around 6 months. We were on a road trip heading across Texas to see her parents. At one point, we needed gas and stopped at a gas station. She went to the bathroom while I was pumping gas, and as I finished, I started feeling a little sick to my stomach. I rushed to the bathroom and sit down and start taking care of business, only to realize too late night that there was no toilet paper in the bathroom. I decided to text my girl and ask her to bring me some out to the women's bathroom. She replies that she can't because she's already in the car, as if it is impossible for her to do me a solid by walking back to grab me some toilet paper. This really does bother me because I've gone out of my way to help her in a pinch, like going to the store on my day off to get her some Midol and bring it to her job to help her with stomach cramps. Her being unwilling to walk 10 yards to do me a solid favor comes across as her being unwilling to put in much effort. Am I overreacting? No, I honestly don't think he's overreacting. This is a super simple thing. Like, it's not that hard to go and help out your girlfriend and or boyfriend with getting them toilet paper. I mean, this is simple, right? The fact that she just left him stranded in the bathroom with nothing to take care of his business is horrible. I mean, how lazy and inconsiderate can you possibly be to just leave your boyfriend stranded in the bathroom with no means of getting out, if you know what I mean? I mean, to be fair, he has helped her out in a pinch as well. He's gotten her medication for when she wasn't feeling well. The least she could do is step out of the car, walk maybe 10 feet into the bathroom, and get him some toilet paper. I mean, come on, like seriously. The guy goes on to give an update where he talks about how he was planning on breaking up with his girlfriend already because apparently she's just awful. He states that this is literally the straw that broke the camel's back. And good on him, to be honest, because nobody needs this kind of drama in their life. At the end of the day, you're going to want to be with someone who has your back. Literally in this case. My girlfriend broke up with me after I refused to pay. I gave her $2,000 to $3,000 every single month, sometimes more, for 2 years. She had a bank debt as well, which I paid off. This weekend, I said enough is enough. We never agreed for me having to give her money. It just happened naturally over time because of life, stuff, surprise bills, etc. And this weekend, she had the audacity to tell me, I want a man that supports me, and if you don't support me financially, we should just be friends. I don't even know where my head is at right now. I never thought it would happen to me, but I got played hard. I'm sick to my stomach. So much for real love. Let my experience serve as yet another warning, guys. I feel physically sick. This is terrible because the original poster here absolutely got played. The lady in this story did not care about him. She only cared about the money that he was providing every month. And he was giving her $2,000 to $3,000 every single month. That is crazy. It's sad to say, but this lady only saw this guy as a checkbook who would write checks for her every month whenever she needed it. And he was already paying off her debt from some bank account. The man got used, and that's just so sad. And if she really can't see that he's more than just a checkbook and money in the bank, then this guy has no reason to stick around with her. She's an absolute terrible person, and he absolutely deserves better. A Karen tries to stop a medical emergency, demanding that her son get a balloon from a clown. So we are on vacation, my parents and me and my husband. After a 12-hour drive and only 6 hours of sleep, we go to breakfast. My dad is so nice and loves kids. He is a professional clown. So while waiting on his waffles, he starts making balloon animals for the kids. My husband and I had already sat with our plates. I'm opening up my syrup pouch when a worker runs by and says to the front desk across the hall, "Call 911, a lady just fell." She was right near me when she said this. So I turned and my mom was on the ground. My dad was still making balloons because a wall blocked his view of the waffle station. I ran past yelling, "Mom!" As I passed him, I shouted, "Dad, Mom fell." He stops making balloons suddenly and comes to check on his wife. That's when Karen and her kid come into play. Her kid was one of the ones that didn't get a balloon because he stopped to check on his wife. While standing over his wife, the Karen comes up and says,
How dare you not make a balloon for my kid just because he has Down syndrome? You need to make him one right now.
My dad pointed to my mom on the ground. That's my wife. The Karen said,
I don't care. Don't exclude my son.
The ambulance had arrived and I left to lead them to her while giving medical history to save time, and they pushed the Karen away to check on my mom. That completely shot down the Karen as the other people at breakfast were giving her dirty looks and giving the whole situation a wide berth, except for a lawyer I had to chase off. My husband overheard the exchange between the Karen and my dad. He went on to tell me that after this all cooled down, my dad went up to this lady and called her an absolute Karen of a person. I guess we were lucky because she couldn't ask to speak to my dad's manager. Some people have no self-awareness of what's actually going on in an emergency situation. This lady's a prime example of it. She would rather have her kid get a balloon animal than a medical emergency getting addressed. I think the biggest silver lining here is that the Karen doesn't have a manager to try and complain to. Am I the jerk for warning a nurse that she might pass out during a medical procedure? This actually happened 3 days ago, but today is my day off, so I have some time to write this down. I am a doctor in a hospital. One of the procedures we do is called a bone marrow biopsy. It is a procedure where we go inside the bone, where the factory of all blood cells is, and get a sample. It's done in the room at the bedside. No need for an operating room or anything. We usually use a special needle to get into the hip bone from behind as the patient is lying flat on their face. It sounds scary, but it's a fairly minor procedure. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes. Today I had to do this for one of my patients. Usually I require some assistance, someone to hand me things when I am sterile and to take things from me. Anyone can do it. Usually I have an eager medical student and I explain what I am doing as I go so he or she can learn. Today I didn't. So I asked for help from one of the nurses and they gave me one of the travelers who are there to help. While I am preparing the field and getting ready, I said how thankful I was for her to come and help. I had never seen her before and I know the floor nurses fairly well at this point. That's when she told me she is a traveler. I asked if she ever saw a bone marrow biopsy before and she said no. I then asked if she had lunch and she said no. So I decided it was a good idea to warn her. I said something like, "Hey, just a heads up, a lot of people seeing this for the first time get a little woozy, so if you start feeling it, let me know." And it's true. I have had a few nurses, med students get woozy while watching. Something about the needle pushing through the bone that gets to people. There is a scratching noise that you can audibly hear as the needle rubs against the surface of a bone. People feel it in their core. It's also a very forceful procedure. Bones are hard and I have to apply a great deal of pressure to make my way in there. And also the fact that when we pull out the marrow, we are technically pulling fluid out of a vacuum, and that can sometimes be painful to the patient and the viewers to behold. Boy oh boy did she not like that. She rolled her eyes and huffed and puffed at me and said,
"Don't you worry about that, honey,"
with the full weight of the condescension that honey can carry.
"I've been a nurse for 15 years. I've been a trauma and ER nurse for most of it. I've seen metal spikes and machetes pulled out of all sort of holes on patients' bodies. I think I'll be all right."
She was intentionally rude and antagonistic. I stopped for a second and looked at her, trying to decide how to respond, but after a split second, I decided it wasn't worth it. I'm not a confrontational person normally, and I've been around long enough to know that it's not worth it to engage. So I just said, okay. I genuinely didn't really care. I just wanted to finish my procedure in peace and move on to the next patient during my very busy day. Well, what do you know? Minutes into the procedure, I got my needle into the bone marrow space and I am starting to pull out the liquid marrow. This is the painful part. The patient grunted and I apologized. Not much I can do about this part. All of a sudden, I hear a thud. I turned around to find said nurse on the ground out cold. I call her name. Nothing. This was obviously a problem. I had to leave my sterile field, interrupt the procedure, and get help. The other nurses called a rapid response, which is an overhead page that we typically call when a patient is looking suddenly ill, and we need extra hands. The nurse ended up in the emergency department. She is thankfully all right. This story is great because it takes a nurse who is absolutely rude and disrespectful and it humbles them a little bit. I'm kind of glad this happened to them, only because I found out that they're actually alright at the end of it. Why would someone act like this when a doctor's trying to warn them ahead of time of something that might cause them anguish of some kind? I mean, that's just absolutely downright rude. The nurse in this story should be ashamed of themselves, and the doctor did the right thing of trying to give them as much information about something they've never seen before. And the doctor's not kidding. That bone marrow procedure is not nice to look at, so I don't blame him for trying to warn the nurse ahead of time. I went to a pub and almost became a father. This happened probably 20 years ago, but I was reminded of my misadventure by another story on Reddit. In my university days, I used to go out drinking every weekend, and one such night out, I see this really attractive girl at my local bar. I myself had had a few too many, so I approach her and we start talking, and for some reason, it's going really well. Eventually, she asked me if I wanted to take her home. I was interested, so she told me she has to let her friends know she is leaving, and also to see if the said friends can give us a ride there. She comes back with this huge angry looking guy and tells me where we are going. We all hop into his car and he drives us to a beach just out of town. I admit I was a little bit worried, but I was in my early 20s and thought myself invulnerable, so I still went with him. They're in the front seat, the whole time arguing in what I assume was Romanian as well. They offer me some herb, but I decline as I was already feeling a bit uncomfortable. Luckily, nothing happens, and eventually they ask for my address and we head over there. But when we arrive, the girl tells me me she will go and drop her friend off and come back. I tried staying awake, but at 3 or 4 in the morning, I was asleep, and if she did come back, I never heard her knock. In the morning, I just thought that was weird, but I was probably lucky nothing bad happened. The following weekend, I'm at home drinking in preparation to go out on the town again when someone is knocking on my door. I open the door and it's her, the Romanian girl I met at the pub. Then I look down and she has a baby in front of her. I look back at her confused, and she asks me if she could leave the baby with me, as she has to go into town and meet some guy just for the night, she says. I was bewildered and just apologized, shutting the door in her face. I still don't understand what the deal was. Maybe she thought I was trustworthy enough to babysit. I still wonder to this day how I avoided a bigger mess up. It sounds like this guy got super lucky. These people were clearly going to do something weird. I mean, the automatic red flag for me is the fact that he was able to get home and not have anything weird happen to him. Like, the way that he's describing this is exactly how someone would get kidnapped, and that's like super scary. And this lady was trying to pawn her kid off to him to like babysit or something like that. That sounds super sketchy as well. I guarantee you if that guy had let that baby come into his house and he supposedly babysat it, that baby would then be his. I guarantee you she was just looking for someone to try and give this baby to, and that is absolutely insane. I told my family I'm volunteering to help out in Ukraine, and they said they'll disown me if I go. I considered all of the facts and made the decision wholeheartedly. I am a 37-year-old male living in Philadelphia. I'm on the verge of homelessness, and various reports are saying that the Ukrainian government is paying volunteers up to $2,000 a day. I'm not going because of the money or the glory. I'm doing it because it feels like the right thing to do. I was denied the opportunity to join the American military due to a slight but properly medicated mental illness. I have evaluated all of the options, and I am completely fine with any outcome, even if I die. I will die if I become homeless, so I may as well go to Ukraine and make my sacrifice worth something. Despite all of this, my family has freaked out, even threatening to disown me if I go to Ukraine, regardless of if I return home with enough money to buy a house and live somewhat independent. They are rather serious supporters of Russia for some reason. My family has been trying everything to stop me from doing this, short of offering to actually help me out of the situation that actually made me decide to do this. If I go, I could make something of myself, and even possibly get myself out of a bad situation. But being disowned by my family means that I lose all contact with them, even to the point where they would ignore any correspondence I would send regarding my safety while in Ukraine and after I return home. I lose the chance to claim death benefits when they pass on and will be written out of everyone's will. They aren't even offering to store my belongings while I'm overseas. It's making me second guess everything. What should I do? I think the original poster has got it all wrong. The OP is not going to be coming back from Ukraine with enough money to buy a house and live somewhat independent, as he puts it. Like, that's not how this is going to work. And based on some of the comments that I'm seeing and some of the research people have put in, it does not look like there's any legitimate organization that's paying people $2,000 a day without some kind of stipulation attached. Apparently, this is like a 3-year service deal. This guy also claims that his family's like pro-Russian or something like that, but he hasn't shown any evidence of that, so it's hard for me to take it at face value. It sounds like this is someone who's making a really bad decision to fix a really bad situation. I personally don't believe anything about this post. I mean, $2,000 a day is ridiculous, and it's not happening. The situation going on in Ukraine is incredibly dangerous, and I'd be surprised if he even came home alive. I kind of don't blame his family for telling him, hey, don't go and do this. This is nuts. If anything, it looks like they're just trying to look out for his well-being. Overall, it sounds like this guy just needs help getting back on his feet, and he's looking for desperate measures to try and get some kind of financial footing. But going to Ukraine and volunteering is not worth it. $2,000 a day is not going to matter when you're dead. So yeah, I'm not totally convinced on what I'm hearing, but I really hope this guy gets the help that he needs. My boyfriend got mad at me because I didn't bring him lunch. Long story short, sometimes I bring lunch for my boyfriend when he's at work. I usually order via Uber Eats, then pick it up to give it to him. Sometimes I would sit in my car and eat with him and spend time with him when he's on break. I have a midterm tomorrow, and usually every Sunday I go to a cafe pretty far away from my neighborhood with my friend. I already woke up late because I was on my phone with him late at night and was an hour late to pick her up. I told him in the morning when I woke up that I can't bring him lunch, so I don't know why he's bringing it up a few hours later. Basically, I leave my house and pick up my friend, and we head over to the cafe. I get to the cafe and I see a bunch of messages from my boyfriend saying, "You're so close to me. Why can't you bring me lunch? Yet you would drive miles away to a cafe? What's the difference of missing an hour of studying?" I replied saying that I woke up late and kept my friend waiting for so long we didn't make any detours, hours and went straight there. And this midterm is super important, and I need as much time as I can get. Plus, the cafes near my place are all super packed on weekends, and this is the only spot that actually has a good environment for studying. He gets petty and starts arguing about how I could have just taken an hour to bring him lunch, and I got fed up, so I told him to drop it. I told him I'm sorry and I love him, and I'll see him a later time. I said I'll make it up to him by ordering food and delivering it straight to him, and he just says, "No, I don't want it." I'm so sick of this, and I tried so hard to reason with him, only for him to shoot me down and nitpick at the smallest details. I sent a few more text messages trying to make him feel better, but he's flat out ignoring me. What should I say to him when I see him? My friend jokingly said I should buy him lunch and show up and make him feel guilty for being an idiot, but I was like, nah, this midterm is more important. The guy in the story is just being selfish. I mean, how can he not understand that his girlfriend needs to get some studying done? Like, midterms are no joke. Like, you gotta be ready for those. And so the guy is just being completely irrational. That, or he's jealous that his girlfriend is actually having to do something that might be less stressful than whatever work he's doing. I know if I was in the guy's situation, I would probably want to be at a cafe studying something interesting instead of grueling away dealing with customer service or something like that. Both of the people in this story are college-age students, so I bet the guy has some job that he just absolutely despises and would rather be with his girlfriend or eating lunch on a break or something. But the way he's acting is just absolutely immature. She didn't do anything wrong by not getting him lunch. She has no obligation to get it to him. She loves him and they love each other, obviously, but like, this is kind of weird. To just flat out expect your girlfriend to just drop whatever she's doing just to go get you lunch? No, that's not how this works. And yeah, I'm with the friend. She absolutely should have got him lunch anyways and guilt tripped him, because two could play that game. My boyfriend made out with a girl at a club in front of my face. I've been dating my boyfriend for over 2 years now. We live together, but have been doing long distance for over a year since we go to different colleges. It has been a bit of an adjustment, and we have struggled with the change. I go home every weekend to our apartment to see him though. I really hoped we would get married in the next year or so after graduation. But the other weekend, him and I, along with some friends, went out to the club to have fun. The night seemed to be going great. Then, all of a sudden, I turn and I see him making out with some random girl. I was so shocked. I thought I was imagining things, but one of our friends saw it too. I immediately left the club and felt like I was having a panic attack. He came back home about an hour later. The next day, he claims he was blacked out and had one too many and doesn't remember anything, and that he is sorry for what he did. I don't know what I should do. I love him a lot, and this is the guy I thought I was for sure going to marry. But at the same time, I consider this cheating, and that's a horrible thing to do. If this lady had any sense about her, she would absolutely drop him to the curb. This kind of behavior is unacceptable. He did this right in front of her face. I can't even imagine of staying with someone after they did something like that. And he did it while she was there. Having one too many is not a good excuse for cheating on your girlfriend, and she should absolutely dump him immediately. My childhood best friend is marrying a man she's cheated on multiple times, and he has no idea. So a couple weeks ago, my best friend Diana messaged me saying that she was pregnant and getting married in around 3 months. I was initially really excited for her and was planning on booking my tickets until I realized that the man she was marrying was someone she had pretty heavily abused and might not even be the father of her kid. I should first establish that I haven't lived in the same country as Diana for 10 years now and only knew about her lifestyle and choices from things she told me and evidence she's shown. From what I know, her life had kind of spiraled a fair bit from when I left, and she was partaking in really bad substances, as well as getting into some questionable relationships. I've tried talking to her, but she wasn't very accessible from where I was, and eventually, I just settled on hoping for the best. Since then, she's kind of cleaned up her act aside from a couple hiccups. When she first met her now fiancé, he was good for her. I remember visiting around 5 years ago when they first started talking, and she seemed excited but wary seeing as it was her first relationship with a guy. They had started dating when we were around 18 and 19, and from the outside it looked like they were doing pretty well. However, a year or so into it, she came to me telling me that they had broken up and it was her fault. I asked her what she meant, and she described in detail all the ways that she had emotionally and verbally abused him. She seemed to regret it though, and the years following would date other men as she held on to the idea that her former boyfriend was the one that got away. 3 years after their breakup, Diana reached out to him again, asking him for a second chance. She said that she completely cleaned up her act and would never hurt him again, telling him that her biggest regret in life was losing him. With all things considered, he took her back and they started dating again. It's been around 2 years since then. However, around a year ago, she came to me with a confession. She had been cheating on this man for months now, with a man from her workplace. The man was married and with kids. I obviously told her off about it and asked her to break it off. She eventually told me she did. After a couple of weeks and some stern conversations, she eventually told me she did, so I thought that was that. I still have my doubts though. I also told her that she needs to tell her boyfriend about this. She refused, saying that it might make him do something drastic, as his mental health wasn't super good. I didn't think I had the right to tell her boyfriend about what had been going on, seeing as I was far away and never actually met him in person. I was also afraid that she was right. If I told him and something did happen, I could never forgive myself. This probably makes me a jerk, but part of me also thought that they would break up eventually anyways, but they didn't. He got her pregnant and now they're getting married. If I said anything now, I risk ruining 3 lives. I still love my friend despite how dysfunctional she can be sometimes, and she did seem to keep her promise that she wouldn't emotionally and verbally abuse him anymore. But there is a real possibility that my friend lied about cutting ties with the other man and the baby might not be her current boyfriend's. How should I approach this situation without making things worse? Oh man, this one's horrible. The person by the name of Diana in this story is absolute hot garbage across the board. They're abusive, they've done some illegal substances, they've lied and cheated on their boyfriend multiple times, and there's a chance that the baby they're currently carrying is not their current boyfriend's. Like, what is happening? And this friend is stuck in the middle of all of this. Meanwhile, Diana's boyfriend has no idea what's going on. I think the person in this story has it all wrong. They're worried about ruining lives, but the person in this story by the name of Diana is the one doing that to herself. She's abusive and a cheater, and that poor man deserves the right to make the decision. And sure, the baby might not have a father growing up if things go south, but just think about how devastating this is going to be for that man if he finds out 10 to 15 years later that this is not actually his kid. Either way, this is going to end poorly for that child. In my opinion, I would absolutely let the boyfriend know that his soon-to-be wife Diana cheated on him, has been very abusive, and has been very dishonest. If I was about to get married to my spouse, I would want to know if she was cheating on me. I would not want to be with someone like that. And I'm willing to bet that the boyfriend probably would not want to be with Diana if he knew what was actually going on. Regardless of friendships with Diana, it's time to step up and do the right thing. A crazy Karen pushes down the ladder I'm standing on, and I ended up breaking my collarbone. This happened 1 week ago, a Monday, my worst day in over 5 years. I'm a locksmith by trade, and the job requires me to be up on ladders fixing doors and locks and whatever else is broken on a door. I was working on the main entrance of a secondhand store. Sometimes I have to block off an entryway to fix a door, and if I do, I always try to find another option for customers to enter and exit the building. I opened an emergency exit door off to the right, maybe 10 feet away of where I was working, to make sure there was a door they could use. I'm working away, minding my own business up on my ladder, listening to my audiobook on my Bluetooth headset, when an entitled Karen and her child walks towards me.
Excuse me, I need to get into the store.
I tried to explain her that the entryway was blocked for now and that there was another option, but she just wouldn't have it.
I need it now. You can't block the door. You need to get out of my way.
I then, in an annoyed voice, said, "There is a door right over there. You can go in."
No, this is closer.
Eventually, I just said, "Look, stop bothering me and go to the other door." This is when Karen takes things to the next level. And by the next level, I mean she gets arrested. Karen was not taking any of my yelling at her. She grabs her son by the wrist and tries to climb under my ladder while I'm on it. Her large purse catches the side rung of my ladder and pulled it over, sending me, my tools, and the motor of the handicap operator I was working on smashing to the ground. I fell on my shoulder, breaking my collarbone and dislocating my shoulder. The motor hit the ground and shattered, and the ladder fell on her and her son. A cashier who saw the whole thing through the window rushed over to see if I was okay. I said, "No, something is broken. Call the police and an ambulance." They arrive and the police take statements, and I tell them I want to press charges before I was loaded up in the ambulance and taken to the hospital. The kid's father came to pick up his son, who was not hurt thankfully, and the Karen was taken away in handcuffs. No word yet on a court date or anything. This story is actually insane because it goes on to say that the lady ended up having to pay $30,000 in damages, and ended up having 4 years in federal prison with 2 years on probation. She lost her son, she lost her marriage, she literally lost everything because of this, all because she couldn't use another door just to get into a store. The guy in the story had everything paid for him in the end, and this lady ended up paying for all of it. I'm super happy that the guy was able to get out of this on top and that this Karen absolutely got what was coming to them. I almost burned down my apartment. Last night after work, I decided to sit on my patio and smoke some herb while I was watching the sunset. A couple of hours later, I noticed a strong smell of smoke and fire. I live in Southern California, so I assumed it was a local brush fire somewhere, but I couldn't find anything online about it. I even posted about it in my local subreddit, asking if anyone else smelled smoke. The smell got stronger and stronger, to the point it was hard to breathe. I walked all around my apartment to make sure nothing was burning, but found nothing. I went back to my patio a couple of times, and the smell was very strong outside, so I assumed there must be a fire somewhere, and smoke was blowing my direction. Jump ahead to an hour ago. I come home from being out all day, and my apartment still smells like smoke. I was confused. I walked out to my patio and randomly started moving things around. I picked up one of those clay planter pots that was filled with dirt, and it burned my hand. Somehow I must have put ash in the pot full of dirt, and it started a fire that smoldered for 16 hours. I'm still not sure how dirt caught on fire. The pot was sitting on a carpet. I live in a 40-unit building. This could have been bad. This guy got super lucky because dirt can have a lot of organic material in it, like bark and leaves, that is like super flammable. So it kind of depends on what kind of dirt he put in there. But yeah, he could have started a very serious fire. I mean, what you do in your spare time's all good and it's up to you, but you gotta be careful where you put your ashes, especially if you're in California where fires are such a big problem. Be safe, be smart, and just don't get things burned down. I found my boyfriend on Tinder. My boyfriend and I are just getting ready to move in with each other in like a week. We met on Tinder 3 years ago and have been dating ever since. I recently talked to him about some of his toxic behavior and how it needs to stop before he moves in. He agreed. Yesterday, I received a screenshot from a mutual of a Tinder profile with his picture and name along with his correct age. I was in shock, but this is not the first time. A couple months ago, another girl told me this, but didn't have any screenshots. I confronted my boyfriend and he denied it was him and got angry with me that I would even think it was him. I haven't confronted him yet, but I know he will deny it. Am I stupid for believing it isn't him? Do people make fake Tinder accounts of real people and impersonate them often? Or is this truly him and I've just been a fool? I think people do make Tinder accounts with other people just to try and catfish other people, but this is too much of a coincidence for it not to be him. The first time I can understand where it's just anecdotal where you don't have any proof, but this time there's concrete evidence, there's literal screenshots of him on Tinder. That's super suspicious. I think this next conversation this lady's gonna have with her boyfriend is going to be very crucial on whether or not they stay together or even move in together. But if this guy actually is on Tinder while also having a girlfriend, this is absolutely tragic. And this guy is 100% a piece of garbage. I got caught cheating on a history test. I recently remembered yet another core middle school memory. So here we go. This one was in 8th grade. I had a history teacher who was pretty chill and had us grade our own tests. We just got a red pen and marked the ones we got wrong as he read all the answers aloud. The test we were taking was pretty hard. I don't remember exactly what it was on, but almost the whole class struggled, myself included. While we were grading, I was getting a ton of them wrong. I probably got like half the test wrong, so I decided to change my answers. I would erase my wrong answers and write down the right ones in place of it. Then I kept about 2 answers wrong so it wouldn't be suspicious that I got 100% while everyone else got a 60 or 70%. I got 92% by cheating, but since I had done the extra credit, I got 5 points extra, totaling to a 97%. He had us tell him our grade out loud for him to put in his grade book, but we could go up if we didn't want to say it out loud. So when he called my name, I said 97. Everyone was looking at me like I was a ghost. He gave me candy and then at the end of class collected our tests. I thought I got away with it, but when I went to class the next day, he called me up to the front during class. He proceeded to hand me 2 tests and asked me to spot the differences. Both tests had my name and handwriting on them, but one had like 9 answers wrong and one had 2. It hit me that he made copies of our tests to check if we were changing our answers, and he had caught me red-handed. He made me tell the entire class that I cheated and then gave me a 5%. I asked why I got a 5% and not a 0, and he said because I did the extra credit. He made me go sit down after that, and the entire class laughed their butts off. I wanted to cry out of embarrassment. I ended up having my schedule changed and never went anywhere near that classroom again. I got teased until my sophomore year of high school over it. I thought I would never live it down. I think this is a pretty honest lesson that cheating never wins. Like, there's a chance you could get away with it, but at the end of the day, you're risking it big. The teacher is a genius for making copies of the tests before he had his students grade them, because he caught this person red-handed. In all honesty, it's just not worth cheating. It's better just to get the 0 or just to fail the test in general than it is to risk getting caught cheating. That's almost worse than failing. But at least this lesson stuck and he probably won't cheat anytime in the future. Today I messed up by accidentally mixing bleach and vinegar. This happened over an hour ago. I'm currently sitting outside, getting fresh air and soaking in my shame. I'm so disappointed in myself. Today was the day I decided that I would take apart and deep clean my dishwasher. After pulling all of the parts out and scrubbing anything detachable, I started on the actual walls of the dishwasher. I had some stubborn stains that I was trying to scrub with vinegar. I had diluted the vinegar with a little bit of water on the door of the dishwasher. No matter how hard I scrubbed, the stains weren't coming off. So my big brain decided to go grab the bleach since it's so good at removing stains. I grabbed the bottle and poured some into the dishwasher, right into the vinegar. I kneeled down and scrubbed for a minute before I realized the smell. I immediately knew I messed up. I closed my dishwasher and ran around my house. I opened every window, closed interior doors, turned my fan on full blast, turned on my vents, and turned the AC to fan only. I locked all my pets into rooms and turned my bird's air purifier on full blast and closed the AC vent to their room. Once I ensured proper ventilation and pet safety, I went back to the dishwasher. I grabbed my 8-quart soup pot and filled it with water. I dumped that into the dishwasher, making sure to pour it on the door. And then I had to put it back together before I could start a rinse cycle to drain it. I got all that done in 10 minutes and then sat outside to calm down and breathe in some fresh air. Once I calmed down, I called poison control to tell on myself. I felt like such an idiot explaining everything to the lady. Luckily, she was very nice and let me know that I did everything I was supposed to. Then she of course told me not to do that again and to monitor myself for any symptoms. Since then, I have showered and put my clothes into the washing machine. I am now beating myself up over this. I don't know why I did such a dumb thing. I could have really hurt myself or my pets, especially my birds. Luckily, everyone is acting normal and I'm doing just fine. Now all that's left to do is just to tell my fiance what I did once he gets home. So I googled it, and mixing bleach and vinegar creates potentially lethal chlorine gas. I had no idea this was actually a thing. Apparently it's super unsafe. This is actually really good to know. I did not know this was something that could happen. I occasionally use bleach and vinegar to clean objects or surfaces. I didn't know it could create a poisonous substance. It's actually really good that the original poster didn't get hurt or somebody didn't, I don't know, unalive themselves, because I would have had no idea. But I probably would have figured it out once the gas started to smell absolutely obnoxious. So yeah, just a little life lesson. Don't mix vinegar and bleach, otherwise you're just gonna poison yourself. My boyfriend is obsessed with Elden Ring. Much like every other girl out there, I have lost my 23-year-old boyfriend to Elden Ring. It wasn't a big deal at first because I see how the first week of the game is exciting and fun. Elden Ring is fun and I occasionally play it, but my boyfriend takes it to a new level. He logged close to 200 hours since its release. He's finished the game already and is almost done with his second playthrough. On Saturday, he started playing at 1:30 in the afternoon and it is now 8:00 p.m. Sunday evening. He hasn't stopped outside of grabbing a drink or going to the toilet. That's pretty much it. I asked him to pay attention to me today. He says, "I just have to beat this boss. I just have to find this treasure. I just have to do this or that." Finally, I got him off of the game and thought we could talk for an hour before I had to go to sleep at 9, and his stupid friends ended up messaging him about playing on the game. He just kept saying, "I just have to help them beat this one boss." Yeah, okay buddy. I'll see you when I wake up in the morning, like I have since the game came out. He wants to know why I'm upset, but honestly, I can't even process the words for it. He's really good about talking our frustrations out, but part of me feels guilty because I want to be the cool girlfriend, and the other part wants to go into a rage and just absolutely start breaking things. Does anyone have advice on how I can talk to him? I totally understand where this guy is coming from because Elden Ring is addicting. That game is so much fun. I myself found my Saturday completely sucked away from me when I looked up and it was 4:00 in the afternoon and I hadn't done anything besides get out of bed and play Elden Ring. So I see where she's coming from of not seeing her boyfriend ever again. I don't think I've taken it to the extreme of not moving for literally a day, but I think I'm coming close. She just needs to talk to him and be honest, and maybe rip the game away from him for maybe just 30 minutes so they can at least try and begin to discuss this issue. It sounds like this is just a fun new toy toy for this guy, and he really enjoys the game, which is understandable because it's a fantastic game, but a little communication will go a long way. All of my friends and family think my boyfriend is ugly. So it's important to start by saying that I had not lived at home since I was 18 until the pandemic. So my whole dating life has been entirely separate to my family life up to this point. I've been in one serious but unhappy relationship that lasted a year, but the rest of my relationships have never made it past 3 months, and I've never mentioned anyone I've seen to my family. I began dating this guy 3 months ago and very quickly realized that we had a lot in common and that I wanted to see where this would go. I began chatting to my friends about him and showing pictures, as you do, and every single one of my friends has said something like, "He has a weird face. Shame about his face. That's unfortunate." And just always commenting that he's less attractive and that it won't last because of that. But I kept telling myself that he has so many other qualities that I really like and that the way he looks didn't bother me. It never stopped me wanting to be physical with him, so I didn't see why it mattered. So we continued dating and I eventually mentioned him to my mom. I told her a bit about him, and then a couple weeks later I showed her a picture and she instantly took a disliking to him and started asking me what I was doing, trying to figure out what I saw in him. She literally said, "He must think himself really lucky to have someone that looks like you." And up until this point, she had liked the idea of him. Now I don't really know what to do. I like this guy a lot, and I think I might be falling for him. But to know that all of my friends and family think he is ugly and keep commenting on how he is less attractive is really upsetting. Should I just try and ignore them? Is it really a bad idea to date someone that's supposedly less attractive than you, even if they make you really happy? First off, I want to say that the friends and family in this situation are terrible people. The original poster here does not need to listen to anybody else. She already knows that she loves this man. Who cares what anyone else thinks? There is so much more to a relationship than just physical looks. She's found somebody who's compatible, who she loves, someone she wants to be close with, and someone that she genuinely feels loved with. Why on earth would she care what other people think? I would personally tell all those people who are saying that my significant other is unattractive to get lost. This has nothing to do with them. Overall, she owes nobody an explanation as to why she loves him and should continue to be with him regardless of what anyone thinks of how he looks. My female best friend is acting jealous of me dating, even though she rejected me romantically herself. Me and my friend have always been close, but after she broke up with her boyfriend a few months ago, we got even closer since I was getting out of a difficult relationship around that time too. We talk every day, often for hours at a time, hang out one-on-one, and basically share everything. We're always there for each other in times of crisis. A few weeks ago, I realized I wanted to be more than friends, so I asked her out, and she rejected me very firmly. She said she only saw me as a friend, a close friend, in fact, basically family, her words, not mine, but a friend nonetheless. Since then, she started dating again and has constantly asked me for advice on how to act around these guys she's seeing. At first, it was difficult since I liked her, but I powered through it to be there for her. She said she knew it was painful for me, but she needed my advice and support, and a good friend should always be there. The thing is, I know she's not testing me and challenging me to make a move again. She's getting quite serious with one of those guys, and it's looking like they'll be official very soon, and she's quite smitten with him. She has also reiterated her stance on numerous occasions that I am not on the table as a romantic partner. I haven't even brought it up again since I accepted her decision to say no, but she always finds a way to bring it up just to remind me that it's never going to happen. However, last week I met a lovely girl and we exchanged numbers. We had a coffee date last Saturday and my friend got really weird around me. She kept asking me about it, and not in a happy way. These were instead really personal, probing questions. Even when it became clear that I was uncomfortable, she kept trying to ask more questions. And last night, myself and this new lady had dinner together, and we ended up going back to her place. My friend was texting me all night, and when I told her I was on a date, she got really weird, and then kept texting me more and asking why I was being slow with my response. I stopped responding after a while, and this morning I had a barrage of upset texts. She called me as soon as I was home and wanted to know all about the date. How did we do? Am I seeing her again? Did we sleep together? It was really intrusive and I felt very uncomfortable. I think she's jealous of the fact that I'm dating, but I don't understand why since she rejected me. Does she want me to be single forever? Why? She's very open about the fact that she's dating all these wonderful men, and I'm glad to see her happy. So why isn't she happy for me? Surely she would be delighted I'm going on dates with new women, because it means I'm not going to try and make a move on her again, especially now that she's getting serious with a potential new boyfriend. It seems like she wants me to be supportive and happy for her going out with guys, but is jealous and unsupportive when I go out with other girls. I'm at a loss at how to handle this. I don't want to lose her as a friend, but the sheer hypocrisy is doing my head in. Yeah, the lady here is very jealous for some weird reason, and it sounds like she just wants him around without him actually having any kind of happiness. Like, it feels like a power play, like she's happy she has someone around her that she has some semblance of control over because she rejected him. She's being very selfish. It sounds like she likes having him as a satellite, someone who just kind of hangs around and is always around her, more like an object than an actual friend. This is very toxic, and this guy does not need this. At the end of the day, honestly, she is not his friend. She's manipulating him, and she's being very toxic. This seems like an ego boost for her, and he can do a lot better with finding better friends. My Karen mother blames my husband for getting her sick. Let me start this by saying that my mother has never liked my husband since we started dating almost 5 years ago. My mother has always had issues with the fact that my husband has always advocated for my mental health, even if she didn't like the outcome, and was the one to help move me out of her house after 18 years of psychological torment. I have always loved him, and always will, even if she does not approve of our relationship. On to what sparked this post. My husband was exposed to COVID almost 3 weeks ago at his job, and ended up testing positive. Both of us got tested, and I came up negative. I was lucky enough that I never caught it while caring for him for the last couple of weeks, and nursing him back to health. I, however, caught a nasty strain of bronchitis and a stomach bug at the same time that left me incapacitated alongside him. From the moment I informed my mother that he tested positive, she claimed,
"Well, it couldn't really be that bad."
also saying,
"Those tests don't come up negative all the time."
to err on the side of caution, I did my errands we needed to be done and was the only one bringing in packages that our family dropped off for us. Thankfully, after almost 2 weeks, he now has tested negative and is feeling back to his old self. His 30th birthday happened to fall 3 days after he tested negative. I insisted he stay home for that day, as we didn't want to celebrate anyway, but we had made plans a few months earlier with my mother to go over to her place for dinner the day after his birthday. I informed her that he was no longer testing positive, and she replied,
"Well, now you don't have any excuse not to come over and see me."
I received a phone call this morning from my extremely ill mother asking me how to read her COVID test, and I walked her through it over the phone, to which she hung up directly after confirming it was positive. I texted her directly after, asking where she thought she had picked it up, since it had been 4 days since we last saw her, and I needed to know if we needed to get retested. Her response was,
"I obviously caught it from that no-good, stupid son-in-law who just had to have his birthday party and couldn't bother thinking of other people's safety."
I was dumbfounded at the text and decided not to respond so that I wouldn't say something I regretted. She quickly followed it up with a text saying that I should just ignore it because she has been up throwing up all night, and because of her diabetes and her sugars being all over the place since she is sick, that I should just ignore the message and get over it. Then she promptly unsent all the messages so that there was no proof that she could possibly be the bad guy. I have had issues with my mother before because she doesn't approve of the man I have chosen to be with, but in my mind, this is the last straw. I don't know if I ever want to be or ever can be in contact with her again, even if she does apologize to my husband. The mom in this story really is a Karen. I mean, how selfish can you be? Treating their daughter's husband like garbage for some unknown reason, blaming them for something that they didn't do. He tested negative, like, come on. How on earth could you blame them for something that clearly is a medical issue that you're dealing with? If I was the woman in this situation, I 100% would have called out my mom on this and made my feelings known. You do not have to take that kind of abuse, and I don't blame her for wanting to cut off contact. Am I the jerk for not letting my friend bring their dog to our cabin for vacation? My friend group consists of about 6 people, and one of them is Ashley. I have a beach house, and I usually host some small vacations for our group over there. Ashley recently got a dog, and the dog has separation anxiety, so she can't just leave it alone. She asked if she could bring the dog over. I'm not a fan of dogs unless I know they are service dogs and are properly trained. She often complains how her dog is struggling, and I frankly don't want her dog in my house. I apologized and told her I don't want the dog to come over because I don't want one in the house. She got really upset because she can't leave the dog at a doggy daycare because of separation anxiety. I said I understand, but I guess that meant she wouldn't be able to come. It's also good to know most of my friends love the cabin. It's large and right on the beach, so we've made good memories here, and due to COVID, haven't really been there in a while. Ashley is really upset she's missing out on this, and some of my friends think I'm being mean to her and that that the dog wouldn't cause much problems while some are defending me. It's getting a little heated and I don't know what I should do. In all honesty, I can see this both ways. Like, first and foremost, it is your house and it's your responsibility to make sure that it's in good condition. But at the same time, I can kind of see where Ashley's coming from. Maybe the dog has separation anxiety, but it doesn't sound like there's any violent tendencies associated with it. Like, I'm sure if you put the dog in a crate and then just put the crate over by like the front door, it would probably be okay. And I know it's a dog and you want it to be out and playing with it. But if you're really worried it's gonna like destroy things, you can take proper precautions. In my opinion, I think the original poster is maybe stretching this a little bit farther than it needs to be, but also it's their property. So, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. I accidentally destroyed my son's Minecraft world. My son is 7 years old and loves playing Minecraft. Lately, he's been asking me to join him. I've never played it before, but what beats gaming with your kid, right? So he has this world where he just roams and builds things. He has built an amazing house. Honestly, I know he's my son and I am probably biased, but the things he builds are amazing. He asked me to build a house next to his, so I did. Then one evening, I think, I'm going to build him a surprise. He's really into robots, so I thought, I'm going to build him a massive robot. And I'm talking Statue of Liberty or Eiffel Tower massive. It's 8 in the evening, we had just brought the kids to bed, and I start building and building and building. Around 10, I look at it and I think, this robot is sick. But wouldn't it be cool if it had an Iron Man-like energy source? So I start digging a hole in the robot's chest. Inside, I'm starting to build this energy source type of thing. I figure it has to be shiny and flashy, so I start stacking gold blocks. To make it look extra cool, I capture the gold blocks in transparent ice blocks. I fly away, look at it from a distance and think, it's not glowing yet. Let me lighten this up with some torches around it. So I do, and it looks amazing. A job well done, so I walk to the fridge and grab myself a well-earned drink. I get back to the TV and there is water running. There is a legit waterfall pouring down my massive robot's chest. How on earth could this happen? How was I supposed to know? The physics make no sense, but all of a sudden these ice blocks do melt near fire. I quickly shut the hole in the robot's chest, but it's too late. My son's entire house and garden are flooded. There are all kinds of puddles and little lakes where there used to be fields of sheep. He built a convertible car, which now sits on an island. The whole place looks like a mess. So this happened yesterday night. It's now 9 a.m. and my kids are helping my girlfriend bake waffles. At some point, my child will want to play with me. I only hope we can restore the game to a previous point to avoid some kind of meltdown. There might be a silver lining to this because from the sounds of it, the kid seems like a good kid. Maybe he'll be cool with rebuilding the town and kind of making it better. Or the original poster is going to be doomed to a life of indentured servitude to his kid to try and rebuild this town. I scared the life out of my girlfriend by crawling up the stairs like a demon. So we're borrowing my girlfriend's father's house for the weekend while he and his partner are away. It's me, my girl, and our 1-year-old son. The kid was put down, to sleep that is, around 8 o'clock p.m. and my girlfriend went to bed at around 11. About 2 hours ago, around 1 in the morning, I went to draw a bath in the tub. I love taking baths at night, and we don't have a tub at our home now, so when I get the chance, I go for it. The bathroom is on the second floor of the house, alongside 3 other bedrooms, one of them occupied by the kid, and the other one by her and me. Once I've tidied up my stuff and find all the light switches, all that remains is to ascend the staircase and lower my pale carcass into the perfectly tempered water that calms my nerves and soothes my body. The thing is, it's a really creaky staircase, like comically so. It sounds like you're violently disintegrating it beneath your feet as you climb it. The noise is insane. Those noises will wake everybody up in the house if you don't do it perfectly. And even though you're still making enough noise to garner a contract on your head from your neighbors, if you know what I mean. My girl is a light sleeper, has trouble sleeping, and really values the sleep she does get. My son is a slightly heavier sleeper, but he's nowhere near my own loudly comatose sleep, and this creaking would shatter any hope of me entering the bath this side of an hour. And did I mention how steep these stairs are? It's more akin to climbing a wall. How 3 kids grew up in this house without casualties amazes me, because this thing is deadly if you don't watch your step. Add to that the challenge of avoiding creaking and cracking the steps, and you've got a proper quest on your hands. So what do? Naturally, I get together an appropriate solution suitable for my ambitions. I figured I'd walk up the stairs on all 4s, you know, to distribute my weight as I went up the stairs, to creak less. The idea made sense at the time, and to be honest, it worked, future consequences notwithstanding. The creaking was much, much lower, but not low enough to wake up my girlfriend. As I turned off the last light downstairs and made my ascent, she came out into the hallway. She wasn't wearing her glasses, so it took a moment for her to notice me, since I also instinctively froze for that same amount of time when she opened open the bedroom door. So at that very moment, I freeze. As I freeze, she looks at me, and all she could see was my pale, tired, nighttime face frozen in an undoubtedly unfortunate grimace, with a bigger, even paler body climbing up at her like an albino spider from the pitch black darkness of downstairs on all fours at 1 a.m. She screamed so loud it shook my eyeballs and howled as she fell to the floor and shrieked in very real, horrifying fear. Our son woke up, joining his mother in the absolute mayhem that was my relaxing bath time. I nearly fell down the stairs, but managed to rush up and calm my girlfriend down, but she was too terrified and furious to listen to me. Thankfully, she was able to laugh at it once we calmed down our son and her heart rate slowed down to triple digits. My girlfriend, the ever drama queen, feels this was not appropriate behavior at 1 a.m. She also thought I looked like an American version of the Grudge Girl, but creepier. Threats were leveled against me and my dearest private parts if I ever did that again. This is hilarious to me because I can see this happening. I think anybody's crawled up the steps on all fours like a goblin at some point in their life, but to do it in the dark at 1 a.m. is absolutely hilarious to me. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just gotta sneak around your house to get things done. And unfortunately, you just might scare someone right out of their skin. I think my boyfriend has a crush on my sister. I'll start off by saying my sister has always been the star of our family. She's the typical gorgeous girl. She was prom queen, a cheerleader, and always gets hit on everywhere she goes. By no means am I super insecure. We are related after all, but I'm painfully aware I'm closer to average. I've had other boyfriends in the past, and honestly, them meeting her and hanging out with all three of us has never been an issue. My current boyfriend, on the other hand, is starting to bring up insecurities in me that I never knew I had. It all started when I met some of his friends a couple of months ago. One of them recognized my full name and realized who my sister was from being in the same grade in high school, and went on and on about how hot she was and that my boyfriend is probably kicking himself after realizing which sister he picked. Now, I'm used to this sort of banter, but what really hurt is my boyfriend just laughed. At the time, I wasn't mad at my boyfriend, but other situations have made me start to feel extremely insecure. When my friends greet me whenever we hang out, I know they're just being playful when they ask, "Hey, how's your sister doing?" Or "Is your sister single yet?" It's stuff like this that really rubs me the wrong way, and my boyfriend isn't helping. When I met his coworkers, they have talked about her and how attractive she is, but the only tie they would have to her is my boyfriend, which leads me to believe my boyfriend is actively showing her off. I was trying to show him something on Instagram, and I noticed he had searched for her profile, and lately he always asks about her, or even goes as far as to ask to hang out as three of us. I'm close to my sister, but the fact that he invites her to come with us to restaurants or places where I think we're going has gotten me frustrated and is making me feel like he has a crush on her. Anyone with an obviously more attractive sibling have any advice? He's a wonderful guy otherwise, but as I mentioned before, my other exes have acknowledged she's attractive, but have never had any sort of obsession over her. Yeah, this is pretty bad. It definitely seems like this guy has a crush on his girlfriend's sister. The original poster goes on to say that they went and they confronted their boyfriend about this, and the boyfriend said that he was just trying to show off how attractive the entire family is, and he only invites her to things to be nice, and stuff like, since we go out and eat a lot, he didn't realize he was basically asking her to tag along on dates, which is honestly exactly what he was doing. But the best silver lining about it is that he totally understands why she's upset over this. So you just gotta be careful. And also, what terrible friends does this person have? Like, why would you compare this woman to her sister with the implication that she is not as good looking as her sister? Like, that's really rude and disrespectful. I think she needs to find better friends, but it's really good to hear that she has a good boyfriend who understands where she's coming from. My crazy parents stole my Nintendo Switch and held it hostage against me. I'm 20 years old and moved out of my parents' house at 18 because I really couldn't stand it. And it's for all of the kinds of reasons you can guess. They were jerks, favored my younger siblings, used me for free childcare. They even told me, "What's mine is mine and what's yours is mine." All that garbage. When I left, my dad told me not to let the door hit me on the way out and to never come back. I got the smallest and cheapest apartment I could find and have worked the same full-time job for 2 years. My parents didn't even hold out a month before calling me and begging me to come back home, because without me, someone else had to watch my siblings. I refused because now I finally had time for myself. My dad eventually called me and actually demanded I move back home and pay them rent, because family is more important than my personal independence. I said back to him that my life is too important, and for once I'm getting to live for myself. So he basically said, "Well, then see how long you can last without us." And we didn't talk for months. I don't know what he was hoping for. I managed well enough myself for 2 years. My family seemed to slowly accept that I wasn't going to come crawling back, and over time we seemed to mend things for the most part. I could tell they were having a hard time dealing with the fact that things were on my terms and not theirs. They begged me to watch my youngest siblings from time to time, even though the two that are closest to me in age are in their mid-teens now. But my parents don't want to put babysitting on them any more than they have to, which is hypocritical since they tried to put it on me as much as possible. And yes, I have called them out on that. They responded with gaslighting and more months of silence yet again. And yet, like clockwork, they were the ones to come crawling back asking me for help. Not long ago, I bought myself a Nintendo Switch, even though I could only afford one game for it at the moment. My mom came by on a Saturday and asked me to watch my two youngest siblings for a while. She basically pushed them in the door at me and ran away. I was stuck with these two rowdy kids all day in my tiny apartment. My mom didn't come back until 9 o'clock in the evening, and that is because I called her and made her come get her kids. And she really didn't like that I cut her fun time short. I said that unless she wanted to pay me, I wasn't going to watch my siblings all day anymore, ever again. And next time, I won't even open the door, and I'll call the police if she leaves them outside my doorstep. The next morning, I realized I couldn't find my Nintendo Switch anywhere, so I called my parents. And like I thought, one of my siblings took it. I said I was coming over to get it right away, but my mom said it could wait because my youngest sibling was gaming on it, and she didn't have the heart to take it away. I said it was taken without my permission, and I will be taking it back. I got on my bike and rode there as soon as possible, and when I arrived, my sibling was crying because the Switch's battery had gone dead, and they didn't have the charger. I told them to give it back, but my dad took it and said I can have it back when I agree to start helping out with my siblings more. I told him if that's how he wanted to play this, I'd get the police involved. And no, I was not bluffing. He dug his heels in and insisted I wouldn't do it until I pulled my phone out and started dialing. My mom yelled, "Wait!" and quickly took my Switch back from my dad. He called her a traitor and demanded she return it to him instead of me, but she said it wasn't worth having police called on them. Before leaving, I told them if this ever happens again, I'd be calling the police first. And if they want to switch for my siblings so bad, they can get their own. My dad yelled that I can't disrespect him like that, and I countered that even though I'm an adult, he's not bothered to show even an ounce of respect for me, and that I had had enough. Then I walked out with him yelling at me to come back and face him. Right now it's back to silence from them. My mom texted me once again, begging me to still watch my siblings. I said that if she wanted me to babysit so bad, she could pay me, and I'd only take the money in advance, because I'm not doing it for free anymore. I simply can't, especially after they stole from me and tried to keep from returning my property. They don't own me. I'm an adult with my own place and my own life, and they can either get used to it or get lost. This is a crazy story because the parents in here are absolutely crossing the line left and right. I mean, this person has their own life. They're 20 years old, living on their own. They have a full-time job, and they spent their hard-earned money on their Nintendo Switch. And these crazy parents try to hold it hostage just so this person can try and babysit their siblings some more. They do not owe their parents anything, especially if they're going to be this abusive. And this person is way more patient than I would have been. If my hypothetical crazy parents left my younger siblings on my doorstep and then ran off, I would have called Child Protective Services. There is no way I would let that slide. This person is a hero in my eyes because they're standing up for themselves and they're setting clear boundaries. And at the end of the day, if someone can't respect those boundaries, then they shouldn't be in your life anyways, family member or not. Today, I messed up by assuming me and my friend were dating. Back in January, I met a guy at my campus who I really hit it off with. The chemistry was undeniable. A couple days later, he asked me if I wanted to go get lunch together with him. Just by the straightforwardness of how he asked, I figured he was asking me out. I was probably blinded by how much I liked him as well. The next several weeks, we spent a lot of time together, where he would be the one initiating things and taking me around. At this point, I assumed we were a couple. Fast forward to last Sunday, when we ran into some of my old friends, and when I introduced him, I called him my boyfriend. Immediately after that conversation ended, and we went our separate ways, he looked at me puzzlingly and asked why I said that. He explained he doesn't date at all, and just considered us very good friends, and that I'm the closest friend he's had in years. I've never been more embarrassed, and it's completely my fault for jumping to conclusions. Oh man, this one's sad. I think this is just obvious evidence that you don't want to jump to conclusions, especially in a relationship, man. You got to make sure you have clear, defined expectations, because one person thought they were in a relationship and the other one thought they were just really good friends. I can't help but cringe at this story, but I also feel really bad for the original poster. They obviously thought they had something perfect, and from the sounds of it, this seemed like a really good relationship. But boy howdy, does it need to be clearly more defined. Otherwise, you're just gonna get friend-zoned. An angry Karen tries to steal my waffles. This happened a few years ago. There was this this one sunny Sunday, and I was in a particularly good mood. I was walking around my new neighborhood. All of the houses were built at the same time, and about 50 families moved in and got settled in the last few months back then. People were still getting to know each other. I noticed a bunch of Girl Scouts going door to door with homemade waffles. As I walked past them, they approached me and tried to get me to buy some waffles. I told them to follow me back to my house, as I didn't bring money on my walk. While walking, we spoke a little, and it turned out that their sale had been underwhelming. I decided to buy all of their waffles. I was handed out easily over 100 waffles. If I remember correctly, I spent about 60 to 70 euros. They ran off extremely happy. I figured I'd open up my garage, pop up a small plastic table I keep in my garden shed, and plug in my waffle iron to heat up the waffles. I filled bowls with all kinds of sugar and placed a few syrups next to it. Next, I invited all the new neighbors over to my driveway for a free waffle by texting our Facebook group. Sure enough, a couple of families were keen and a small crowd gathered. It was all fun and games. People got to know each other, we had some wonderful warm waffles, and we even got to make some fun waffles with some killer toppings on them. After some time, a frowning lady, who for some reason appeared to be in quite a hurry, made her way through my neighbors and approached me. I hadn't seen her before. She asked what all this was and why it was happening. I told her the entire story and that it was based on a whim. I don't know how to describe her that would do her character justice, but she was very in your face, way too intense.
So they're free?
She asked. Well, yeah, I told her. I told her again I meant to bring the neighbors together, but that I'd happily provide her with a gloriously topped waffle too.
She said no, none of that.
And said she'd have a bag. She wanted no less than 20 waffles. Now, I'm usually not one for confrontation, and I was already deciding to comply, but then I realized I don't owe her anything, and backed up by the frowns of my neighbors, I told the lady that definitely was not what I had in mind when I bought the waffles. I told her I was happy to prepare her one or two, but I wasn't going to hand them out in large numbers to a complete stranger. She then raised her volume and got offended. She yelled at me what my deal was and why she was the only one denied waffles. Thankfully, the neighbor stepped in. I said that everything here had good intentions and even apologized for taking her chance to buy waffles from the Girl Scouts. I offered her to buy some off me if she wanted them that bad, as I still had plenty, but she was adamant on getting them for free.
No way. Everyone got theirs for free. I won't be the only one paying.
Something like that. Multiple attempts were made to reason with her and to make her see the intention of our events. All of this was to no avail. My neighbors eventually isolated her from the group, and after some continuous blabbering from her to a poor guy who hadn't even said a word, she stormed off. It kind of ruined the mood, but I decided to let it pass. Other families were still coming in, and the situation quickly became a bonding moment. Most were surprised hearing about it. Some already knew her and were less surprised. About 45 minutes to an hour later, two unknown, very friendly kids showed up and ate some waffles. Most people had left by then, and I was just having drinks with some of the guys who stuck around. I had a few waffles left, and the kids asked if they could bring some home. So I said, well, yeah, why not? Happy faces ran off with a few waffles towards a lady in the distance. Yep, it was the angry Karen. And yeah, those were her kids. She flipped me off in front of her kids, yelled something which I didn't understand, and they walked off in the distance. We had to process that for a while. Meanwhile, the angry Karen is quite infamous around our neighborhood. She lives a few streets further. She's employed as a caregiver in a retirement home, and she's an absolute terror. She dumps her trash in other people's bins so she doesn't have to pay as much for her garbage. She blocks driveways. On several cases, she's been reported as a package thief. She calls the cops on anything, has been seen to abuse neighborhood cats. The list goes on. Her kids are super sweet though, which was remarkable. I luckily haven't seen her much ever since the waffle incident. This Karen is absolutely insane. She rolls up in there in an impromptu event and tries to steal all of the waffles. This is like a really bad Batman villain. I mean, who walks up there and says, I want 20 waffles? Like, can she not read the room? I'm very happy that the original poster did not cave to this crazy Karen's demands, but it's especially disgusting that she got her kids to do her dirty work for her. Overall, it sounds like this guy has a weird, crazy Karen neighbor, and hopefully she never shows her ugly face around his parts ever again. Is it weird for my parents to have security cameras all around my house? Now, I don't think any cameras are in my room, but they do threaten to hide more cameras if I misbehave, though I know they aren't being serious. There are cameras in the living room, the yard, hallway, around the stairs, and in some corners of the upstairs area directly outside my room. The main reason my parents give for having cameras is due to security, since they are both very paranoid of potential robbers. They insist that they don't have the time or effort to check what I'm up to through the cameras, but that does not make me feel assured enough. I'm a person who is already annoyed by the countless strict rules they impose on me, even though I'm 18. I value my privacy, and having cameras around the house makes me super uncomfortable. My parents get mad at me when I bring it up because they don't understand my concerns. My mom keeps saying that if there are cameras in school and shopping centers, I shouldn't be worried that there are cameras in the house too. Neither of my parents have the common decency to understand me. And also, my dad gets super mad when I express how uncomfortable I am because he says it seems like I'm suspecting him to be a bad person or something. Does anyone have cameras around the house, or is this super creepy? This is a tricky one because I do know of people who have cameras outside their house to monitor who comes in and out. I also know a few people who have cameras inside their house for like watching their pets, or even just keeping an eye on things if you live in a neighborhood that might be a little sketchy. But I don't know too many people who have that many cameras. And from the sounds of it, it looks like all the cameras are pointed at this kid's room. I mean, it seems like the parents are kind of saying without saying it that they don't really trust their daughter. I think if she wants to find a way around it or to find some kind of common ground, she can see if she can have access to the cameras. For security purposes, you would think that she would want access. Like, what if she's home alone and she hears something at night? Wouldn't you want to have access so you can kind of check out the house and see what's going on? Or is this only for their parents to have? It might be a good way for her to have a conversation with them without them getting upset. Usually these camera systems have some kind of phone app or something where you can watch the cameras. Overall, I can totally understand where this girl is coming from of feeling uncomfortable by it, and it's really unfortunate that her parents are not more understanding. A crazy Karen tried to steal my daughter's Nintendo Switch. For a bit of background, this story happened in September 2021. My family and I were planning this trip to Mexico for 6 months, where we would spend time with our family. The day to travel came, and I was with my daughter at the boarding gate minding my own business, as everyone should do. My daughter was next to me playing on her Nintendo Switch. Then all of a sudden, a kid showed up next to us and just watched my daughter play her games. This was fine. Kids are just being kids sitting together. Everything started when this kid wanted to take the console from my daughter's hands, saying,
"You don't know how to play, give it to me."
My daughter is around 4 years old, and she's learning the controls, and this kid was 8 or 9 years old. I quickly react and grab the Nintendo Switch and told this random kid that it's not his and he should go with his family. I thought everything was fine. Then 10 minutes later, this kid's parents roll up, and this wild Karen rushes me and starts screaming,
"You assaulted my son. Give back what you have stolen."
I just put on a face saying, "What are you talking about?" and stand up covering my daughter. And of course, everyone was looking at us at this point as this lady continues to scream,
"Security, please help, we are in danger."
I continued in a calm and collected manner and just watched her until the police came. And that's when she starts to tell her version of the story. Then the cops turned to me and I told them that she was lying. The Karen was not having it. She was mad at my version, and I don't know what she told her son, but suddenly her son starts crying, saying he's really scared of me. Long story short, she continues to yell, argue, and demand to give my daughter's console to her son that apparently I stole. They took me in a small room until they could verify through the surveillance cameras exactly which story was the truth, mine or hers. Spoiler alert, I was correct. Once they told me I was correct and good to go, I decided to press charges on this lady for harassing me and my daughter and threatening us. After the dust settled, she was kicked out of the airport, and boy oh boy was she not happy. She went full Karen rage mode when they were taking her out. All the while, I'm on the plane sitting pretty, ready to travel to Mexico. It's crazy to me that this lady literally tried to steal from this kid's daughter. I mean, this bratty 8-year-old comes up and tries to steal a Nintendo Switch from a 4-year-old, and the mother tries to pull it off as if it's theirs. From what I saw, this seems super coordinated, so I wouldn't be surprised if this lady was somehow coercing her son into stealing Nintendo Switches. But at the end of the day, justice prevailed, and this Karen got exactly what she deserved. My boyfriend broke up with me for having male friends. My boyfriend and I have been together for 8 months. Things have been great, and I thought we had a solid, trusting relationship up until now. This all started this month when, after me saying I wanted to break things off after a huge argument and us starting to talk again, my boyfriend requested to check my phone for reassurance that I wasn't talking to anyone else. Now, this break had only lasted for a few days, so I hadn't begun to seek anyone else out, as I still loved him deeply, and I'm just not the type of person to move on quickly. I told him that I really did not want him to do that, as having someone look through my phone to check my loyalty is something I communicated that I'm extremely uncomfortable with. I told him this, and I got upset, saying that it shouldn't be an issue. issue if I had nothing to hide, and that he just wanted to see to reassure him that I was loyal. I eventually gave in and showed him my social media to prove I wasn't talking to anyone new, but he took my phone out of my hands and wouldn't let me have it back, which started a huge argument. He said that the look on my face when he wanted to check my DMs told me everything he needed to know, when in reality, I was simply upset that he took my phone, pushed me off him when I tried to take it back, and simply didn't trust me after having been together for 8 months. I truly had nothing to hide. It was the way that he was acting that caused me to have such a negative reaction. Fast forward a couple weeks later, and he's still upset about the incident. He's had my phone and all my social media accounts blocked for at least a week, and said that he'll unlock them when he sees a change. This change he was referring to involved me deleting every male off my social media because he wanted to be the only man in my life and didn't trust me to have any male friends. This included one of my closest friends who is a guy. We have been friends for several years and chat and see each other in college all the time. I never thought that our friendship would be an issue, and he is not a straight man and has never expressed the slightest amount of interest in me, and vice versa. I told my boyfriend that although I loved him and valued our relationship, asking me to cut off every other male in my life and isolating me from one of my best friends is something I cannot do, especially when it's okay for him to have female friends. He went on about how I'm choosing my friend over him, and he hopes all those dudes are worth it, saying how I'll never find someone that treats me better than he does, and that he can't be with someone like me. He then proceeded to break up with me, and I don't know what to do or how to feel anymore. I'll say it for all of us, this lady dodged a huge loser. The fact that this guy would try and isolate her from any other guy in her life is crazy. I mean, how self-conscious can you possibly be? What a controlling psychopath. Like, who does that? It would be different if she was actively looking and speaking with other guys. That would then give him reason to think that she's not being loyal. But to just automatically assume that she's not being loyal just by being friends with guys on her social media is a new level of insecurity that I haven't seen in a very long time. The problem is honestly on the guy in this situation. The girl did not do anything wrong. And in all honesty, this is not someone that she wants in her life. His behavior is not normal, it's abusive, and it could only get worse over time. She absolutely deserves better, and she dodged a very big bullet. My boyfriend won't stop talking like an Elden Ring character, and it's driving me crazy. I've been dating my boyfriend for about 3.5 years now, and we've been living together for 2 years. Overall, I would say our relationship has always been great. I love him very much, and I wouldn't want anyone else. I'm not really into video games, but I like watching my boyfriend play when he comes home from work. Lately, all he's been playing is Elden Ring, which I'm sure some of you will know. He really enjoys it, and it makes me happy that he's having fun, but I feel like he's getting a bit too into it. For about 3 weeks now, he's been talking like the characters from the game basically non-stop, putting on a weird accent and being unnecessarily vague about everything. I've tried bringing it up to him multiple times over the past few weeks, but all he does is chuckle and then go back into whatever he's doing. I'm not sure what to think of this. I feel like at this point, he's just doing it because he knows it annoys me, and the thought of him doing something like that is very painful. I really don't want to break up with him, but I feel like I'll go insane if I have to endure this any longer. Should I just wait for him to stop? I'm sure he will eventually, but the idea that he would do something like this to me in the first place is really bothering me. First and foremost, I have to say that I understand where the addiction to Elden Ring is coming from, but I can also see where the girl is coming from, where she's getting annoyed at the way her boyfriend is acting. So I don't blame her for telling him to please stop acting like this. It's kind of weird. Now, going as far as breaking up with him because of this, I think is a little extreme, but I think having an honest conversation with him would probably go really far. My new puppy is tearing my relationship apart. After I moved in with my girlfriend mid last year, she has been wanting to get a dog. No rescue, no baggage, no mixed breed. She just wanted a puppy. Last week, she got what she wanted. A purebred 11-week-old border collie. Since then, she has regretted the decision and wanted to take her back. I think she didn't realize that puppies bark, chew, bite, and whine. They scratch and are smelly, noisy, and dependent on you. I spent the week leading up researching about puppies. She preferred to learn in the moment. I went out and bought everything we needed and took time off work to help our pup transition into our lives. My girlfriend hates that I split my time between them, and we have been fighting about it all week. I haven't had much time because while my girlfriend is at work, I've been socializing, training, and looking after our puppy. A couple of times, I have heard some possibly abusive things from my girlfriend. She started yelling at the dog to wake up while it was sleeping, so it would sleep during the night and not make sounds. She also threatened to leave the dog in her crate to sleep outside. Just today, I returned home after being away for 5 minutes to hear the puppy whining. At the time, we were cleaning, so we put the puppy in the crate just to sit there while we did our thing. My girlfriend said, "We're all suffering so much," and implied that we should just let the dog cry. She's not interested in training, yells at her a lot, and doesn't share the same views on socializing. I'm working as hard as I can to solve everyone's problems here, but I'm not sure when it's not worth pursuing anymore. It seems like she wants the cute, adorable dog without any of the work. That's like saying you want kids without having to change diapers, clean up vomit, or take them to school. Like, that's not how this works. Baggage does come along with puppies, even if they're new. Like, you gotta clean up after them and you have to train them correctly. Seems like the guy in this situation is the only one who realized what actually is gonna have to happen with a new dog in the house. The girlfriend here is showing some true colors and it's really alarming. So yeah, I think if this guy wants to try and salvage this relationship with this girl, then the dog is probably gonna have to go, unfortunately. My parents stole all of my money. This happened in 2015. I was 18 and about to move out on my own. Prior to this, I had a savings account my parents helped me set up, and I'd been putting money into it any way I could for almost 3 years. Birthday money, odd jobs, part-time after-school jobs, washing dishes, anything I could. And I'd managed to get a few thousand into it. I'd really been wanting to move out because I had 2 little brothers that absolutely drove me up a wall. My parents loved making me the live-in babysitter whenever I wasn't working, which is why I used the excuse to work as much as I could. When the time came, I wanted to move out. My parents said they wanted me to stay because they needed my help and were wanting me to start paying rent to help with the bills. But I held my ground that I wanted to live on my own. I'd already paid the deposit and first month's rent on an apartment without telling them, and by that point, I had a local full-time job. So I was set to move out after about another month. So when they found that out, they freaked out and told me to get out that day if I wanted to be out on my own so bad. I packed what I could and left to go to my aunt and uncle's house. It was a 4-mile ride with a bicycle that I had a small trailer hooked to. When I told my aunt and uncle what happened, they were very angry and took me in right away. A couple days later, I went to withdraw all the money from my account and I saw it was empty. My parents had come in the day before and cleaned it out. All the bank could do was give me a balance statement saying so. Because my parents were co-signers on the account, that meant they had access to the money too. I was livid and immediately told my aunt and uncle as soon as I could. They were beyond angry too. Then my aunt got an idea and started calling up other members of the family to tell them what my parents had done. It wasn't long before everybody knew. My other aunts and uncles, cousins, and grandparents were furious and let my parents have it. I don't know what kind of excuse my parents gave them, but it didn't work. The next time I saw my parents, they showed up to my aunt's and uncle's house to yell at me. When they saw me, my mother threw some money at me and called me an ungrateful brat for telling everyone. My aunt then said it was her who told everyone, not me. I looked at the money they'd thrown me, and it was just some play kids money my brothers had. I asked where the real money was, and my parents said they already used it to pay off a credit card debt. I said I wanted the money they stole from me back for real, but they refused and said it was their right to take it since they opened the account for me, and I still have a job. My expenses at the moment were fine because my next paycheck was deposited in a new account, and I was able to save until the apartment was ready, but my parents took a lot of heat from my aunt and uncle until they left. My cousin also used to babysit for my parents when I was busy, and she not only refused to do so again after what they did, but told me she put out the word to other teen babysitters on social media to avoid my parents because they were thieves. By the time I was living in my apartment, my parents finally couldn't take the social stigma anymore and met me to compromise. They said they couldn't pay me back all at once and asked for a payment plan. I had the exact number of the amount they'd stolen, and I said I wanted it all back. They actually tried to haggle me down to half the total, but I refused to take anything but the full amount. They reluctantly agreed and gave me $200 a month in cash for 2 years before it was all paid back. Now I barely see my parents, let alone speak to them, and they clearly still blame me for what happened too, because their reputation in the family never recovered. But I don't care. They were thieves that paid the piper. So I did the math, and it looks like these parents stole $4,800 from their kid. I mean, how gross and disgusting is that? I cannot fathom trying to work so hard to get your own apartment, only to then find out that your savings that you've worked so hard for is completely cleaned out. You would hope that you would be able to trust your parents with something as precious as money in a situation like this, but it sounds like this person has terrible parents who are just absolute garbage human beings. It's also really cool that their extended family came to their defense and shunned these parents for the thieves that they are. At the end of the day, you gotta be careful and look out for yourself because you never know when something like this could happen to you, even with people you would think would love and care for you the most. A crazy Karen gets her kids banned from a daycare. This happened about 10 years ago. I worked at a grocery store childcare center, and we would do all kinds of fun things with the kids. Movie parties, pizza parties, we would play video games with them, make crafts, story time. It was an absolute blast to work there, and I just adored all of the kids as we'd get to know them, as well as the parents shopping there weekly. Overall, it was a great experience. That is, except for one mom. Let's just call her Karen. We created this entire environment of fun for the kids, from the time they walked up to get signed in until they left. It was winter, and we had built a fireplace for the kids to hang their stockings on that was on the outside window, so parents could see what they made while in the play place, along with a banner that announced a movie night that was hanging across the front of the sign-in area, so the kids would walk under it as their parents signed them in. It was high enough up for adults to walk under, but not super high up. Two of our regulars came in, two girls that were 4 and 6 years old, and as Karen was signing them in, she got a phone call, so she pretty much ignored her girls from there. Both of them were jumping up trying to tap the banner, but one of them accidentally pulled it, and it tore a little bit. I said very nicely, as I knew these kids and knew that they were not jerks, "Hi girls, can you do me a big favor and not tap the banner? It looks like it might need a little bit of fixing and it might fall down." At that moment, Karen slams her hand down on the sign-in desk to get my attention, while still on the phone, not looking at her kids. She says, "Don't you dare parent my children. I'm their mother. I will parent them." I told her to please do so, as we worked very hard on the banner and didn't want it destroyed or for the kids to get hurt. She was not happy and turned around to tell the girls they were not going in today, then turned back and shot me an evil look with a smirk as she put her phone away. Both girls started crying. The mom was all, now, stop it. You are not going. Let's go shopping now," and grabs one of them, the 6-year-old, by the arm and starts pulling her away. The other kid just lost it and had the biggest meltdown I had ever witnessed, and Karen grabbed her by the arm as well and told her to shut up and that they were going home and she'll come back without them. Meanwhile, I'm just standing there watching it all unfold like, is this lady crazy? She now has both girls by their arms in that mom grip we all do and is going to drag them out. She turns back to me and says something akin to, "I hope you're happy that you caused this." And I guess she could read my face because I didn't say anything, and she got even madder. She dropped one of the kids' arms and started ripping stockings that kids had made off the fireplace and started tossing them to the ground. At that point, I just called the front desk and told them what was happening, and they sent a manager right over to deal with it. Karen ended up getting her kids banned from the play place for 3 months. It was all on camera, so she couldn't deny it. She never apologized, and eventually she still brought them once her ban was over. This Karen is the type of lady who absolutely will leave a bad review simply because you didn't say thank you at the checkout. What an absolute garbage human being. And the fact that she was ripping stockings off of this fireplace and throwing it on the ground is just icing on the cake. I can't believe they let her come back. That should have been a lifetime ban. And it's unfortunate for the kids because based on the original poster, the kids were apparently really good kids. But that's unfortunately usually the case when one of your parents is an absolute Karen. The kids probably act incredibly nice and polite to make up for their garbage parents that are raising them. Really crazy stuff. If I was a manager, that lady would have been banned for life. You can't start destroying somebody's property and expect to get away with it. Am I the jerk for calling my daughter fat? My daughter is obese. I won't sugarcoat it. She's 14 years old and she was recently diagnosed with pre-diabetes. She no longer attends school because she felt so insecure she would have meltdowns every day before school. I honestly think she was just putting up a show so she didn't have to go. I mean, what kid likes school? My ex and I have 3 kids, a 22-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 14-year-old. Larry, who is 16 years old, was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. Jen, our 14-year-old, is in the process of an autism diagnosis. As she grows older, she's gotten more and more argumentative and refuses to do things when asked. I'll tell her to clean her room and she'll explain that she has, but when I go to check, things have been messily put into drawers and boxes. I tell her it isn't good enough, and she gets all snappy and says, "Well, maybe if I had a half-decent father who taught me how to clean, I'd be able to do it properly." Jen is now at her mother's house most of the time, and she doesn't act out at all over there. According to my ex, her room is perfectly fine and she is able to maintain the cleanliness without a problem. So I know she does it just to spite me. Jen used to be at my mother's house once a week and mine the next week, but she loves to be horrible to me and now only visits every fortnight on the weekend. On a Saturday, Jen sat me down and told me she wanted therapy to discuss her eating problems. She told me her mother agreed and it was a good idea, and she wanted my consent. I asked her what she needed therapy for, as she is the only one who controls what goes in her body. Jen explodes on me, telling me that it was my fault she was obese, and that whenever she would visit for a week, all I would do is throw away takeout on her plate. And whenever my ex tried to correct her eating habits by giving her healthy alternatives, it was too late, because she began to depend on unhealthy foods as a source of happiness. Because she would be constantly in the house until 9 p.m. alone and would always hear me argue with her mother on the phone. I told Jen she was being unreasonable and told her to get a grip. I told her I didn't force the food down her throat, she did, and she can't blame me for her obesity. I told her she can't blame the world for her problems. Ever since then, Jen refuses to visit and won't even read my texts. I've tried showing up at the door, but if she answers and sees it's me, she will slam the door in my face. She won't talk to me at all, and I don't want to lose the love of my only daughter, but I think she is blowing things out of proportion just because her mother lets her do whatever she wants. She has been overdramatic since she was young, even gotten so far as to lie about her paranoia disorder and have panic attacks about being hurt whenever she was home alone. I know I'm not perfect, and I feel like I kinda messed up. It's not like Jen to not talk to me at all, or even acknowledge me. Am I the jerk? Yep, I can confidently say this guy is a massive jerk. The man in this situation is a terrible parent. I'm just gonna go out there and say it. The fact that he would shift responsibility onto somebody else on what he fed his daughter growing up is more than enough reason for me to realize, oh yeah, his ex definitely didn't want to be with that. For him to blame his daughter for her own eating habits at the age of 14 is atrocious, because it's not her fault what she was given to eat as a kid. It's the parents' fault. It blows my mind that he was trying to convince his daughter that, hey, I'm not responsible. I gave you the food. You just happen to eat it. It's your fault. When in reality, he's the one that gave her the bad food that she became addicted to. And the fact that he's so nonchalant and lazy about this is just absolutely appalling. I mean, I don't blame the little girl for not keeping her room clean. I'd keep that place as messy as possible too. Overall, I really feel bad for the 14-year-old girl in this situation, and hopefully she can get the help that she needs from the parent that actually cares about her. Today I messed up by laughing at a guy who got his arm ripped off at work. Well, this is gonna be a rough one. I'm still reeling from shock of this whole situation. I work in a factory with a large number of large machines and such, and on any one day we have numerous accidents, not due to equipment failure, but more so the lack of attention put on the actual jobs themselves. So it's not unusual to see someone's hand ripped open from an accident on the job. There's probably 12 guys on the night shift crew, which is the first mistake here. That number is drastically low. This is an 8,000 square foot factory, and 12 guys, including myself, run it all and train new hires. Well, tonight of all nights, we had 3 guys call out, and I have to train a new hire, only having been there a month myself. So we're horrendously understaffed for a system that runs incredibly fast. And on top of all that I have, probably one of the most unaware and idiotic people I have ever met. And when I mean idiotic, I mean this guy was stupid. He probably would have eaten a rock if I told him it tasted good. We get maybe an hour into the shift as I'm training him, and I work with a very large system of presses, metal presses with belts that run them, and these belts are up to 3,000 RPMs. So as we work, he's helping me, and I'm giving this guy the simplest task possible to avoid an accident. Then one of the supervisors comes in and finally gives me a rundown, and in 30 seconds or so, we are taking this new hire over to the belts, and I believe he tried to grab a piece of cloth or something behind it, failing to realize that the machine is running, and as he's grabbing the cloth and pulling it out, the cloth catches on the belt and rips his arm off, like clean tear right around the mid bicep. I immediately rip my belt off and wrap it as tight as I can around this dude's arm to stop him from bleeding out. I call code over the radios and everyone runs over. Now here's where things get really messed up on my part. All this guy could think about was the gas prices as he's bleeding out. I'm gonna have to stop working and the gas prices are gonna be ridiculous. Well, this supervisor that I was talking to comes over and he kicks the dude's now severed arm and says, well, gas is really costing people an arm and a leg now. And at this point, I'm so nervous, I just burst out laughing. I don't know what came over me, but I just started hysterically laughing. So I'm sitting there holding this dude's arm, belt around it, and my feet on the other side of the belt, pushing it to get as much force on the artery as possible. Laughing like a psycho, and lo and behold, the plant manager comes around absolutely enraged because he only heard me laughing and walks around to find the situation. So I'm probably gonna lose my job. They sent everyone home on a paid day off. I'm currently on administrative leave until further notice. The guy made it to the hospital in one condition, all things considered, I was told. There's a lot of questions I have, but mostly, why on earth would they allow someone who's new around this dangerous of equipment? The place this original poster works at sounds entirely unsafe. I mean, there has got to be so many OSHA violations, it's not even funny. If you don't know what OSHA is the organization that prevents this. It prevents people from losing their arms. And this situation clearly has some OSHA violations. I mean, that's absolutely unacceptably dangerous. The fact that this is happening on a regular basis is proof enough that my man needs to get another job. Get out and get out fast. And I don't blame him for laughing. I probably would have started laughing too. Maybe not out of anxiety, but maybe out of just pure trauma. This guy's arm is sitting probably 3 feet away as you're trying to press down on his artery to prevent him from unaliving. That's pretty traumatic. The original poster goes on to say that no, they were not able to reattach this guy's arm. But he did say how they did report this to OSHA. It doesn't sound like anything's gonna come from it though. And even worse, this guy goes on to say how he's not gonna leave this job because he says it's, quote, a fairly safe job. No, my dude, this is not a safe job and you absolutely need to get out before you lose your arm. My boyfriend has become obsessed with cryptocurrency and it's causing problems in our relationship. My boyfriend has been on the crypto scene for a few years now. He hasn't struck big as far as I know and is glued on his phone watching stocks drop and rise. I have zero interest in cryptocurrency and I don't think I'll see myself using it for a long while. Recently, he's been hyping up NFTs. To me, they're a get-rich-quick scam with a lot of snags. They are also heavily discouraged in the art community, except for the wealthy, skilled artists who choose to participate in them. So I don't wish to associate my art with them until a possible better solution arises. I've already discussed my discomfort with my boyfriend whenever he speaks to me about them, and he always looks incredibly disappointed in me, calling me old-fashioned and afraid of getting rich. I said, if they're so successful, why are there people still trying hardcore to sell them? And why is it so full of controversies like stolen art and such? He'd brush off my concerns and say these people aren't doing it right, like making bad investments and such. He asked me one day if he could mint my art, and I was very much against it. I told him if he took my art without my consent, I'd throw a DMCA notice at him without hesitation. It's my art and my intellectual property. He blew up at me and said I wasn't thinking about our future together. He was always thinking of helping us both get rich faster and stay secure, and I wasn't being supportive. I told him he can do what he wants with his cryptocurrency, but leave me and my art out of it. We haven't talked since. I don't understand. All this cryptocurrency talk has changed him, and now it's all he talks about. I don't care for it. But then he says I'm afraid of getting rich. What am I going to do? What am I doing wrong? I'm honestly surprised that this woman is still with this guy, to be completely honest with you. The way he's talking to her and down to her at that is really disgusting behavior. NFTs definitely seem super sketchy and very unreliable. It really does seem like a get-rich-quick scam, and there really is a lot of controversy surrounding it. I have a lot of artist friends who absolutely despise NFTs and want nothing to do with them. So I completely understand where this woman is coming from when she says that she does not want her art associated with that garbage. It seems like this guy is desperate to get rich so he can get out of his crappy job and have some incredible amount of money that he can just bank on the rest of his life, but that is just not going to happen. In my opinion, she needs to have a serious conversation with him if she really wants to try and make this relationship work. Overall, it sounds like this guy was overstepping boundaries and not listening to his girlfriend, and in my opinion, she can do much better than this crypto bro. My boyfriend flew to Alaska to cheat on me. My now ex-boyfriend cheated on me while he was on a college trip to Alaska. This college trip did not happen. We had a good relationship, we rarely fought, and we had a good life together. We loved making plans together and enjoyed each other's company. We even had a cruise booked for July 30th of that year, and we had our plane tickets booked for July 29th for the cruise. Around the end of February, my boyfriend had told me he was going on some supposed college trip with his professor and some classmates to Alaska for a banking convention, is what he said, for 10 days, and that he would be leaving on March 5th and returning back on March 15th. It was such a late notice, and the strangest part was he never gave me details about the trip or anything, even when I asked. The entire time he was in Alaska, he called me maybe 3 times a day. He FaceTimed me, texted me constantly, and he never showed any signs of distress. On March 14th, he called me to let me know he'd be flying home early because he ran out of money. His story didn't make sense, but I trusted him, so I didn't push him any further. He never never acted different when he came back, never showed any odd behavior. He even brought me back a stuffed animal from the trip. Last Saturday, we even went on a date and had a good time together. Everything went down on March 21st, when I was playing Apex Legends with a friend at 2 in the morning. One of my friends that I play with has me added on Facebook, so I thought I'd message that friend on Facebook Messenger to see if he wanted to join me. I honestly hardly ever check Facebook Messenger. Well, I see I had a message request. When I opened it, I saw it was some girl letting me know that my boyfriend flew to Alaska to spend time with her friend and they did the dirty together, and that he even tried to assault her, so the girl kicked him out of the house early. So that overall explains why he came home early. She even sent me pics of him in her bed and them eating at IHOP together. I was completely stunned. My heart dropped to my knees. I confronted my boyfriend the next day and his response was, "You're crazy. They're lying. I never cheated on you. I hung out with them for 1 day." He ignored me for 2 days and even hid from me. I never messaged the girl back due to the fact that she sent me everything I needed to know. I posted a TikTok about being heartbroken, and apparently somehow that upset him so bad that he wouldn't speak to me. Yet there's picture proof of him in some girl's bed. This isn't the first time he's cheated on me. He cheated on me once before and I took him back. Last night he called me to let me know that his parents think it's best that him and I don't talk for a week. He said, "I need a break from you because you posted on TikTok." I told him we needed to communicate because he still hasn't even talked to me about what happened in Alaska. Since then, I haven't heard from him, and he seems to not even care about what he did to me or our 5-year relationship. I don't even know how I'm going to heal from what he did. What am I gonna do? Okay, the first thing that comes to mind before I even get into what this guy did, why on earth would you take him back if he cheated? Once a cheater, always a cheater. You don't need that in your life. But more importantly, this man is an absolute scumbag. He flew to Alaska to go cheat on somebody. Do you know what's in Alaska? No offense, but there's nothing. There is nothing in Alaska except for polar bears, ice, and misery. All jokes aside, why would this person fly all the way to Alaska just to cheat? I mean, does this relationship not mean anything to them? 5 years go just completely down the drain as this guy wants to hook up with some lady from Alaska. What a terrible life decision. There were so many opportunities for him not to do this too. The fact that he would lie and say it's some kind of college trip, and then the booking of the flight, and then him actually getting on the flight to fly to Alaska. I mean, there were so many opportunities for him to do the right thing and say, "No, I'm not gonna do this." It's a very unfair situation and she absolutely does not deserve this kind of trauma. So I hope she gets the help that she needs and that she's able to move on from this. Today I messed up by printing my resume on my work printer several states away. So I hate my company. HR and management are deceitful and out of touch. My workload is insane, requiring me to work about 60 hours a week and at least one weekend day just to keep up. Compensation is well below industry standard. Basically, the only good thing about this job is that it's 100% remote work, meaning I don't have to deal with a commute. I get to work in peace and quiet and hang out with my dog all day. And I'm not subjected to run-ins with people I hate. So that part of the job has been pretty sweet until today. I've been slumming with this job for about a year, so I figure it's about time to move on. So like anyone, I not only added my current experience to my resume, I proofread the crap out of the whole thing because I'm better at spotting errors on paper than on a screen. I decided to print off a copy to mark up, so I hit print and wait to hear the telltale sound of the printer firing up, but nothing is heard. So I go on and fiddle with the printer trying to see if the ink is too low or if the paper's out or if it's just connected to the Wi-Fi or something's going wrong there. I try printing the document a few more times, but it seems like my laptop is just not communicating with my printer. Finally, I do what I should have done before I printed the thing in the first place. Check what printer I'm printing to. I do, and it's not to my printer. It's to the printer at my workplace. My workplace in Pittsburgh. I live in Boston. I texted my coworkers who actually live in Pittsburgh and report to the office, and they think it's the funniest thing they have ever heard in their lives. They have been at the company for longer than me, claim that people have done much worse things and not been fired or meaningfully disciplined. But of course I'm still mortified and feeling like a complete idiot. They also assure me that they'll make a mad dash to work Monday to try and snatch the resumes from the printer before anyone sees them. But I'm going to be sweating bullets all weekend because I messed up big time. This is really funny because this could very well happen to just about anybody. Especially with nowadays where a lot of people do remote work, like this could happen. I don't blame this guy for trying to get out of a job that they don't enjoy. There's nothing worse than waking up every morning and having to go in and work at a job that doesn't appreciate you, that underpays you, and overworks you. So get out while you can, I don't blame him. But maybe next time just be more aware of what printer you're printing to. 2 Karen parents endanger their own child and other children at the zoo. So the zoo I work at has a very strict policy of no kid scooters for children that are older than 3 years old. If a child needs a scooter because they can't really walk on their own yet, it is allowed. But when a child is able to walk and just use the scooter to play on and to move freely, it's strictly prohibited, especially when they go too fast. This is mainly for safety reasons. Children on scooters can hit or run over other children. They can fall and hurt themselves. They could even accidentally fall into some of the animal enclosures. Some of the enclosures have very low fences, for example the beavers or the porcupines, and if a child is fast enough, it is definitely possible that they can accidentally launch themselves into one of them should their scooters bump into something. It has happened before, hence the creation of the rule. So during one of my shifts a couple of days ago, I was scanning tickets at the entrance of the zoo. I see these two parents and their young daughter approaching, and the daughter is speeding towards the entrance on a kid scooter. She's visibly older than 3 years old. I ask the parents how old she is when I go and scan their tickets. They tell me that she's 5, to which I then explain the rule of the kid scooter to them and kindly ask them if they can hand the scooter at the cash register booth so they can keep it safe for them while they visit the zoo, and that they can come pick up the scooter after their visit. They are shocked when I tell them and demand to know why they can't have their daughter keep her scooter. I explain the reasons behind the rule and that we really cannot make exceptions. They are visibly angry and ask several times for me to make an exception for their daughter. I tell them no once again, and it really is for their daughter's own safety. I kindly ask them again to hand the scooter in or not enter the zoo if they really don't want to take their daughter's scooter away. The daughter then starts crying, and these two entitled Karen parents get angry at me and say, "Look what you did to our daughter. You made her upset and you ruined her day now." Mind you, it was a very busy day at the zoo. People were waiting in line for me to scan their tickets, and they were taking up a lot of my time. I could tell the people behind them were starting to get upset, and I once again insisted that they had to hand the scooter in or leave. I then just decided to go and help the other guests with their tickets. The entitled Karen stayed right next to me at the entrance, literally blocking half of the entryway with their crying child, calling me an awful, mean woman, and kept on complaining. I ignored it and continued to help the other guests. After about 15 minutes of them just standing there and making a scene, I eventually saw them walk over to the cash register booth, and I assumed they were finally handing in the scooter. Now, there's another small entrance right next to the cash register booth that is meant for people who bought their tickets there to enter the zoo without having to stand in yet another line after waiting in line for the cash register. And apparently, these two entitled Karens used that entrance to secretly enter the zoo with the scooter. I couldn't see them from where I was scanning tickets, and I was too busy to notice. An hour or two later, while I'm doing a cash register shift, I suddenly hear a lot of commotion coming from my supervisors, who are sitting in an office right behind the cash registers. They're on the phone with the head of the zoo security guards. I can tell that something bad and shocking must have happened from the tone in their voices, and once they've hung up, I ask them what happened. Apparently, the security guards had just escorted a family out of the zoo because their daughter was speeding through the zoo on her child's scooter and almost hit a few other children. Some had apparently fallen when trying to avoid her and injured themselves. When one of the security guards came up to the parents to tell them that they're not allowed to have scooters with them and that the daughter immediately needs to get off her scooter, the parents started yelling at the security guard, and apparently the daughter sped from the guard and in the process hits the side of a brick fence of a meerkat enclosure, and the scooter fell into the enclosure as a result. The meerkats of course freaked out and immediately hurried to the inside area of their enclosure, but some became so stressed that they almost escaped from the enclosure. Their caretaker had to be called in just to calm them down enough and distract them with food while the security guards tried to retrieve the scooter. Meanwhile, the child cried loudly and the entitled parents yelled at the security guard that this was his fault and that he almost caused her daughter to fall into the enclosure. Other security guards had come to the scene and the parents and their daughter were immediately kicked out of the zoo. And apparently they never stopped blaming the security guards for what had happened. They were also members of the zoo, and my supervisors immediately revoked their membership. I'm not sure if they're now outright banned from the zoo, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised. This goes to show you that there are rules in place for certain organizations or facilities for a reason. I think back to the Harambe incident from 2016. I mean, if these parents had just listened, they could have avoided this disaster altogether. Some of these animals at the zoo may seem cuddly and adorable, but if you tick them off and stress them out enough, they'll freak out and become wild, ferocious animals. Meerkats are no exception. And the fact that they snuck this scooter into this zoo and caused other children to get hurt in the process is like a lawsuit waiting to happen. So at the end of the day, you need to learn how to follow the rules or get lost. And these two parents parents probably should have picked the first option. I want to break up with my boyfriend, but he won't let me. I honestly don't know how to explain this. I feel like I've reached a point where he is very irritating. I feel like I'm settling. I don't feel happy around him. He is not affectionate, and I don't like even spending time with him anymore. The point is, I think I need to end this relationship, and fast. But whenever I try, he tries a bunch of strategies that end up making it impossible for me to follow through. Either he makes false promises of change, never changes, and the cycle continues. He also sometimes just really doesn't respond, and we never reach a conclusion in the breakup, so it never ends up happening. He has also tried to guilt me into staying. I can go on, but I don't know what to do. We need to resolve it together in order to break up amicably. He's not a bad guy, and I care about him and his family. I just don't want to date anymore. We also live together and have a 3-month cancellation period for the place we live in, and it's extremely difficult to find housing in the city where we live. We share many things such as a car. We're also engaged, and we've been together for many years. I hate to bring it to the original poster, but nobody's gonna force you to be in a relationship. All the excuses you provide at the end of this where you're like, oh man, we live together and it's extremely hard to find housing and we have a car and we're engaged. All of that doesn't matter the second you started listing off all the things that you don't like about him. You find him irritating. You're not happy around him. He's not affectionate. He's not kind, it sounds like. Like that is more than enough reasons to say, hey, no matter what you say, I'm breaking it off. And sometimes you don't have to be amicable. You don't have to make this a mutual thing. You can be selfish in this situation, especially if it sounds like you're going to be miserable. But also the fact that you're engaged to this person and you still can't put your foot down and say, hey, I don't want anything to do with this, is a big red flag for the original poster. There's nothing worse than being a people pleaser to the point where you're going to end up in a relationship that you hate for the rest of your life. Like I can literally see this person 3 years down the line having kids, married to this person, and they still absolutely despise them. Just break it off. All of those concerns of, oh, we live together and we have a car together and we're engaged, all those things can be resolved if you just put your foot down and think of yourself for once. Because if not, you're setting yourself up for a life of misery. My brother is trying to guilt trip me into selling my house for way less than it's worth. I will start this by saying my brother and I have never really gotten along. We live in the South and he is your typical tobacco chewing, big truck driving, deer hunting redneck. This is fine. I don't have an issue with this. We just don't have much in common. I'm a huge computer nerd. I'd rather watch a documentary than anything else on TV. You get the idea. Another area where we butt heads is that I'm bisexual, and my husband and I have been married for a year, been together for 8 years in October. So about the house. My grandpa left his house in my brother and I's name because at the time, my dad and uncle were on drugs, and he was afraid that they just sell it for drug money. We went to a lawyer and signed all the paperwork, and for the past 18 years, all has been well. I had talked to him about selling my half because I didn't want to stay there forever. I'm on disability and a fixed income, and my brother makes a considerable amount of money. He's just really reckless with it. We had the house assessed, and it's valued at just over $120,000, which means if I sold my half to my brother, naturally, he would owe me approximately $60,000. Now, we had discussed I may take $10,000 under the condition he was going to give me a car, as I was in a desperate need of transportation at the time. He called me last week on a Sunday morning, telling me I had to hurry and clean the house, as he wanted to show it the next day or Tuesday. I told him I needed way more notice than that. He told me his friend was being forced out of his house because they were going to be building a new road. Now here's the part where I get really upset. He told me that I agreed to sell my half to him for $10,000 despite the stipulations, and that if I didn't do it now, he would never buy it from me in the future. I told him to just forget it and that I'd keep staying here instead of having to sell it. I also told him that if he wanted to stay with me, that's cool, but if he's gonna be like that and not be fair knowing I can't buy his half, then we should just never sell. I'm so upset that he's always been like this, taking advantage of me and never talking to me unless he wants something, and I don't know what to do. Yeah, it sounds like this person's brother is an absolute garbage human being. They're clearly taking advantage of them, using what they said previously as some kind of way to be like, oh yeah, you're only selling it for $10,000. It's such a weird thing to like latch onto, especially since the guy was clearly desperate for transportation and nobody could help him, so he was like, okay, I'll just give it to you for $10,000 in exchange for a car, which by the way is a terrible exchange rate. I think the original poster in this really needs to assess their value. Overall, I personally would not budge on the price. It's $60,000, especially after having it evaluated for a $120,000. There's no way you're giving it to your brother for $10,000. He is 100% trying to take advantage of you, and now is the perfect time to put your foot down and say no. My girlfriend lied to me about being a vegetarian. I'm a 23-year-old female, and my girlfriend is 22 years old. We've been dating for 5 months now. I'm a vegetarian 99% of the time. I'll have meat maybe 2 or 3 times a year when I really want on a burger, but that's about it. I'm not a vegetarian for moral reasons. Meat just really makes me sick. Not sure why, but I stopped eating meat around 3 years ago, and I felt so much better. If I eat meat, it's because I'm having a craving and I want to scratch the itch. And when I do, I prepare myself for what's to come after, if you get my drift. I have no issues with other people eating meat. My girlfriend and I met on Tinder, and in my bio, I had put in there that I was a vegetarian. My girlfriend and I meet, we chatted, and then went on our first date. She ordered a meatless dish, which was really odd since we were at a burger place. So I asked if she was a vegetarian too, and she said yes. Well, it comes to find out that she's not. I was looking for my wallet in her car last night and found a bunch of receipts from various fast food places for burgers, chicken nuggets, etc. I didn't bring it up, and I just went home at the end of the night like planned. I'm just confused as to why she lied. I plan on talking to her about it, but what would be some advice about it beforehand, as I have trust issues? And jump right to, she tricked you and she's a bad person. Was it to impress me? Did she think I wouldn't want to be with her if I didn't know that she was a vegetarian or something? Was it malicious? It's just such a small, weird thing to lie about, given that I have zero issues with other people eating meat. And what if we ended up getting married one day? Would she just keep the lie up and keep sneaking meat when I'm not around? It sounds like she was just trying to be respectful on the date and then accidentally lied to cover up. I think she was honestly just trying to be supportive overall, and I don't think there's too much to read into this. I can understand having trust issues, but it seems like the original poster is kind of extrapolating this into something that it's not. I mean, they're already talking about marriage. You've been with this person for like 5 months. Like, are you kidding? And also, the definition of vegetarian is someone who does not eat meat, and if you're eating it a few times a year, you're not actually a vegetarian. So actually, both of you aren't vegetarian if you really look at it. So there really isn't anything to worry about. Overall, this really isn't that big of a deal, and I don't think some big show and dance really needs to go into talking about why their girlfriend isn't a vegetarian. My mom doesn't like my girlfriend because she thinks she's ugly. I got into a relationship about 3 months ago, and my mother has been deliberately making life difficult for me after meeting my girlfriend. She has been hostile towards me, picking fights, shouting at me in the middle of the night when I get back from my girlfriend's house, and basically trying to control who I spend my time with, and repeatedly questioning me if my girlfriend is the right girl for me. She has never made the real effort to get to know my girlfriend, but has been openly displaying her disapproval towards my girlfriend and saying nasty things about her, even in her presence, which are baseless and just born of prejudice. 2 days back, she told me that she hopes that I will find someone better soon, essentially telling me to still be open to dating and seeing other women while still being with my current girlfriend. I was dumbfounded, as I didn't think this would be something a parent would tell their child. After a heated argument, she finally admitted that she found my girlfriend to be too ugly for her standards, and that because of that, she was prejudiced against her. It's the main reason why she has been giving me so much garbage the past few months about anything and everything related to my girlfriend. Objectively speaking, my girlfriend is not the prettiest, but she is definitely not ugly or overweight. She has a great personality that suits me, and we get along very well. But my mother does not see this and only chooses to base her opinion of my girlfriend based on superficial factors, such as appearance. Since then, she has been doing sneaky and childish things, like sending photos of girls that she finds attractive on the family group chat. It is obvious that she is trying to indirectly tell me that these are the kind of girls I should be dating instead of my current girlfriend. I acknowledge that looks aren't everything, and this is what I told my mother as well. I understand that every parent wants the best for their child, but I don't think that being nasty, making toxic remarks, questioning my choice of partner, and basically trying to control who I spend my time with is what a parent should do, especially since I'm not a teenager anymore. She's basically not respecting me as an adult and implying that I am incapable of making correct decisions in my life. My mother has been a homemaker for over 2 decades, so her mentality and mindset is extremely conservative and dated to say the least. I am at my wit's end, and I have already more or less given up on trying to talk sense into her or to convince her about the merits of my girlfriend, but I find it extremely difficult to communicate with my mother, so we have not been on talking terms for a few weeks now. As stupid as it sounds, my mother is narrow-minded and wrong. Her opinion still matters to me, so it is definitely affecting how I view my girlfriend now. How should I go about overcoming this and not letting my mother's opinion of my girlfriend get to me? It sounds like your mom does not know at all what boundaries are, let alone what it is to actually be a mother. You do not have to ask your mother for permission on who you can and cannot date. If you love your girlfriend, even if objectively speaking she's not the prettiest, then forget what anyone else says. And the original poster is 30 years old. It's time to move forward and not worry about what your parents think. And they need to set clear boundaries and tell them to back off. My neighbor keeps interrogating any guest I have over at my apartment. I moved into my apartment a little over a year ago. I'm a normal and respectful neighbor. I work from home, have my partner and friends around once or twice a week, and go to bed at a reasonable hour. I don't play excessively loud music or have parties or am rude when I see my neighbors in my common areas, but I do appreciate my privacy. There is an older lady who lives across the hall who I was warned about by my real estate agent upon moving in as being a nosy pain in the butt. She's about 70 years old with no family, no friends that I've ever seen, and doesn't work. A lonely old bat is what I'm trying to say. And she is very active on the HOA committee. I think you understand the type of person I mean. She's got a crumb of power over a teeny tiny kingdom and wants to exercise it. Oh, and she likes the sound of her own voice. If you let her start talking to you, she'll hold you hostage for ages. Since I moved in, she has questioned my partner, my brother, and 3 friends when they were coming in about what they were doing here and who they were here to see. They were all polite, but rightfully felt very put off by this interrogation, as if they'd done something wrong, which they absolutely hadn't. The first few times it happened, I kind of understood. She's an old white lady and my brother and my partner are tall-looking men, and she might have been scared in a way that a lot of old white people are, if you know what I mean. But today she stopped my blonde female friend, who was carrying a sewing machine, coming over for a craft day, hardly threatening if you ask me, and wouldn't let her go until she told her who she was at the building to see. Obviously this behavior has got to stop, but I'm unsure of how to approach it in a way that won't inflame her and escalate the situation. I actively avoid this person and rarely see her outside. Ideally, I would slip a polite but firm letter under her door saying that she's made my guests feel uncomfortable on numerous occasions, and I would appreciate her not questioning people she doesn't recognize. Yeah, I don't think a note under the door is going to be what this lady wants. If anything, that's just going to set it off even more. The fact that she's stopping and interrogating everybody who comes into her building is absolutely atrocious. I mean, I would personally warn my friends and my family members when they're coming over to ignore this lady at all costs and to just keep walking. You don't owe anyone any kind of explanation for what you're doing. They could even go as far as recording the interaction as they're walking by, so that if this lady suddenly gets handsy and tries to get their hands on you, you can absolutely stop, go to a safe place, and call the police. I have neighbors like that, and the best thing to do is just to shut it down at the start. I don't think a note is the right way to do this, but absolutely she should approach them and say, hey, you've been making my friends uncomfortable. Stop interrogating everybody who comes in this building. And if she wants to take it to the next level, then by all means take it to the next level. Go to the HOA committee that she's apparently a part of and let them know that this lady is harassing you and your friends and that you would like it to stop. But I can tell you that doing nothing and doing some passive response is clearly not going to work with this lady, because for a person like this, it seems like you might need to fight fire with fire. My sister thinks she's going to be an Oscar-winning screenwriter, even though she's never written anything in her life. First off, I love my sister. We have a decent relationship, but she's really selfish, and that has gotten in the way over the years. Like, she expects me to do what she asks, when she asks, and will guilt trip me if I have something else going on. She's one of those weird people who thinks they don't need to do any legwork to succeed. She's had a ton of different professions, but she always fails because she thinks that the first job she should get is like a CEO or a vice president or something. She's never had a low-level job where she's had to work to get to the top, and has basically lived off our parents her entire life. Anyway, big surprise here, she now wants to be a Hollywood screenwriter. She's written one script, and to put it kindly, it reads like someone who has never studied screenwriting, read screenplays, or even like watched a 5-minute how-to on YouTube about it. There's no story, the formatting is all off, and it's so amateurish, it's painful. The problem for me is that I am a screenwriter. I've had my ups and downs in my career, but I've worked my butt off for 15 years to get where I am. I started as a PA getting coffee. I went to film school. I put in the hours. So now she thinks this one script is a ticket to the big time. She is sure that someone is going to give her millions of dollars to make it. She keeps coming to me for my thoughts on how she can market it, and I tell her, but then she argues with me and does it the way she wants it. I suggested books for her to read for the basics, but she doesn't want to read them because I think that she thinks that she's already a pro. Today I was talking to her about a recent professional success, and she was visibly upset, like she was feeling competitive with me. But I've been doing this for 15 years. I told her recently that if she doesn't want to take my advice, there's nothing I can do to help, but she keeps asking me questions. But it really seems like the only answer she wants to hear is, you're right, I'm trying not to start a family feud, but I'm really upset that she thinks that this is some easy thing where you can write a script and you go to the big time suddenly. And I'm very upset that she seems jealous or competitive with me when this is like one of 20 careers she's had, and I've been working my tail off for years. My mom says I should be nice and keep offering help, and my dad basically says that she's crazy and I should just ignore her. My parents are old, and I really don't want to start a whole thing where when they die there's going to be bad blood between us. But I also kind of hate talking to her because she is so narcissistic and delusional. What should I do? Does anyone have a sibling like this? It sounds like this guy's sister doesn't actually want real advice. It It seems like they just kind of want like false hope of like, you're doing great, keep at it, this is such a great project. And that kind of self-serving talk does not help anybody in the long run. Providing actual advice, especially from someone like this guy who's been at this for 15 years, isn't going to help this person at all. And from the sounds of it, yes, this is the type of person who is going to try and work their way to the top in an industry that they've never been a part of. So in all honesty, she doesn't want real advice. I also see this person having a really hard time dealing with the failure that comes along with any creative endeavor, where what you write isn't going to be good enough for the person who's going to fund it. So you're going to have to rewrite it and then rewrite it some more. And I personally am curious to see how they would actually handle that situation. Another option this guy has is just to deflect and not give any advice at all. Maybe pretend like it's some kind of conflict of interest. That way they can avoid some embarrassing situations. Because at the end of the day, his sister is clearly not on the road to getting this anywhere near published, let alone produced into a movie. So I don't think he has a lot to worry about when it comes to that. An angry Karen threatens me because I didn't give my lunch to her daughter. So I'm at the store, and as I get in, my first stop is getting some lunch for myself. They usually have this wing bar with some plexiglass covering because my state is still a little hot with a virus going around. But my town is mostly safe. I wasn't really paying attention to my surroundings as, honestly, the place was rather busy, and I was just focused on getting my stuff and getting out like I normally do. Here's where the entitled angry Karen and her kid enters the scene, right behind me. The Karen taps my shoulder rather aggressively as I finish putting the lid on my little bowl of meat. She looked like she was in her late 40s, and her kid was just behind her, just on her phone. She looked about 10, I want to say, but I can't really be sure, but definitely a kid still. The Karen says, "Hey, my daughter wants your wings. Hand them over." And at this point, she sticks her hands out with a scowl. I'm guessing she was just expecting me to say, "Oh, sure, why not?" I say, no, I'm about to move out of your way anyway, so there's plenty to go around. The Karen says, excuse me? I said give them to me now." She actually kind of screamed now like it was an order. And that's when I said, as I said, I'm about to get out of your way so you can get it yourself. Now, if you'll excuse me. The enraged Karen looked absolutely furious at the fact I wasn't about to do as she demanded, and actually moved her cart in front of me to block my way. Then she said, "If you don't listen to me, I will get the manager here and I will get you banned. Don't you know who I am? Now give me your food. My child is hungry." The kid looked like they just wanted to melt into the floor in embarrassment. They said, "Mom, it's fine. Let's just go." Luckily, someone heard the commotion and walked up to the angry Karen. And as he was about to ask if everything was all right, the Karen started going off on him, saying I stole her food and she wanted him arrested. He just laughed and said, "I'll take care of this. Just finish your shopping." And so I did. I don't know what happened at the end, but honestly, the whole thing just made me laugh. Hopefully the kid won't end up like their mother. Some people just don't have any manners, and this Karen is definitely the shining example. To get physically aggressive because they demand the food that another person has for their spoiled child is just ridiculous. Hopefully one day this lady gets humbled enough where she won't act like this in public. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that I miss how nice he used to be in the beginning of our relationship? My boyfriend and I have been in a relationship for almost 2 years. We both live in the same city, but we do not live together. He is naturally a little bit louder talker than me, but when we used to talk in the beginning before getting into a relationship, he used to talk gently and sweet with me. Now it's not the same, which I totally get because we are both more comfortable with each other. But he teases and jokes about me a lot, which is not fun all the time, and dominates while joking, where he talks in a loud tone but still laughing and joking about it. So I've just started to be quiet and not react to his jokes at all. Cut to today. We were talking on the phone casually, and he was making a joke on me again, at my expense. And I said that sometimes I miss how he used to talk to me in the beginning. He asked me what I meant by that, and I told him how he used to be gentle, calm, and sweet while talking to me before. And now it's not like that, which I miss sometimes. He got upset about it, saying sometimes no matter how much we do, people will always find faults, and took offense that he isn't sweet, for which I calmly explained that I'm not saying that he's not sweet, and I'm only talking about the tone and the way he talks to me. He was still very offended and upset, saying, "All right, well, it's okay. Everyone has their expectations." We both got a bit quiet for a few seconds. I said I absolutely do not mean anything about him being sweet, and asked to let me explain to him what I mean and why I said that. He said he's not interested and does not want to talk about it. I didn't want to make the conversation worse, so I said that I will talk to him later. I know he won't talk to me until I make a move to talk to him and say sorry. That is not something new, and I'm kind of tired of making the first move and saying sorry all the time, even though it's not my fault. I love him and still want to talk about it calmly, so I was thinking of explaining it to him in a text and let him decide to take the next step. Is there anything else I could do to actually make him listen to what I have to say? It sounds like the girlfriend definitely hit a nerve with the guy based on his reaction. It seems like it's one of those reactions where the guy knows he's at fault and he knows that this is a problem, but he's too prideful to actually admit it. So I think that's kind of what's going on here. And the girl is totally right. You shouldn't be joked about in that way and made fun of, because at the end of the day, if someone's putting you down like that, it's not actually jokes. It's just bullying. Like, it'd be different if this was like a two-way street and they would take jabs at each other, because maybe that's just how they get along. But it seems like this is very one-sided and it's kind of become bullying, if anything else. But overall, I hope they figure things out and that the guy is able to push aside his pride and actually listen to what his girlfriend has to say. I went out with a girl who had a boyfriend, and now she wants to break up with him for me, and I don't know what to do. So first, let me give you some background. I was at a small party of my best friend's about 2 weeks ago. He has a girlfriend who I got to know over the years. We are just semi-friends, if that makes sense. I invite her to my parties, she invites me to hers, but that's basically our entire text conversation. So I was at this party and started talking to a girl named Sarah. That's not actually her real name, by the way. She was alone at the party, and she was a close friend of my best friend's girlfriend. So nothing really happened at the party. We just talked and we clicked really well. I got her Snapchat and number before we left. I'm personally more of a personality guy instead of going for a looks guy, if that makes sense. And I was honestly very interested in her. So we started chatting and hit it off even more. After a week or so, I asked her if she wanted to get a drink sometime. She agreed, so the next day in the afternoon we went out. Remember, at this point I haven't asked if she is in a relationship. Neither has she mentioned anything to me that she is in one. So the day arrives and I ask her if she needs a pickup, and she says, "No, I have someone taking me there." So I go out with her and make some smooth jokes. She grabs my hand and then things kind of go from there. So after drinking and having lunch for an hour, I had to go because I had an appointment for work. So we walked to the place where she would be picked up. This is where things begin to go south. And at this point, I honestly should have seen the signs. So we walk back as she's holding my hand, and she drags me into a side alleyway where we make out for about 5 minutes. So first, here's some information. The alleyway connects to the parking lot, but it's at an angle so you cannot look into the alleyway from the parking lot, if that makes sense. So I tell her, "I need to go. Do you want me to walk you to your lift?" Sarah says, No, hurry to your car and go to work. I had a great time with you." Later, she texts me if I want to do something later in the week. I invite her over to my place for dinner, and we spent some quality time together, if you know what I mean. After I ask her if she needs a ride home, she tells me that someone's waiting for her. I let her go and she tells me her lift is waiting around the corner. So me, someone who hasn't had a girlfriend in 5 years, tells my best friend about everything that just happened. I go over to my friend's place to tell him, and he grabs me by my arm and tells me that this lady actually has a boyfriend, and she's been with this boyfriend for 3 years. At this point, my heart rate starts rising and my friend can see I'm in shock. So I explain everything to him, and I mean everything. I show him texts from this girl because I honestly don't know what to do. So my friend calls his girlfriend, who tells us that Sarah recently has been talking about breaking up with her boyfriend of 3 years since a couple of days ago. I am personally someone who would never ever cheat on someone or cheat with someone. So I feel awful and heartbroken. I felt so much anger and guilt towards Sarah. I went outside and I ended up calling her. She picks up the phone and tells me to wait so she can get more privacy. So that tells me that I know her boyfriend is there. I tell her everything and she starts crying and blaming it on me, saying that I never asked she was in a relationship, which is ridiculous. She tells me that she wants to break up with her boyfriend and be with me. My heart rate raises to the moon and I don't know what to do. I tell her, "Please, Sarah, don't do this." And I start yelling it over the phone. My friend comes out just as I hang up the phone. So that's where I am now. This literally happened today. I am heartbroken, sad, mad, everything, because I have done something that I would have never have done if she had just told me she had a boyfriend. Even after that, she tries to text me and talk to me about this. And personally, I just don't know what to do. After this entire altercation, my friend also told me that it was probably her boyfriend who dropped her on and off both of the dates with me. All of this is wild and I just simply don't know what to do. Boy, is this a heavy one. It sounds like the guy is an honest person and he really doesn't want to cheat or cheat with someone on their boyfriend. So I really feel for this guy of being really heartbroken. But in all honesty, this guy has no business being with this girl. If she could do this to her current boyfriend where she wants to break it off to go with another guy, then she could absolutely do it to him. This is not someone you want to be in a relationship with. At least he found out early and can get out now instead of waiting for 3 years like this lady's current boyfriend, who has no idea that she's going behind his back. My boyfriend hid secret cameras all around our house. I have been dating my boyfriend for 2 years. We met while I was working at a hospital, and he was a resident at the time finishing up. I do want to preface this by saying he didn't know my age when we first met. I'm 21 and my boyfriend is 27. I'm ahead in school, so when he met me, he assumed my age because I was a senior at the time. Anyway, we moved in together a year after dating and have been that way since. Last night, he was working a night shift, so I was deep cleaning the place and packing some things since we're moving for his work soon. So it's not like I was snooping. While cleaning, I found a couple of weird things. I always knew there were security cameras in the house in places like the living room and kitchen for safety, but I found some in places in the bedroom. 2 were even pointed directly at the bed. I tore apart the house after and found a few more in places like the closet and bathroom. I feel so sick because I can't think of any reason to have these besides to spy on me when I'm home alone. I waited for him to get home and immediately brought it to his attention, and he said it was for security, that there was no way one was facing the bed because he would never put them there. He says he has them in the bedroom in case of a break-in for insurance purposes, but I swear, when I found it, that's exactly where it was facing, towards the bed. I don't know what to do. I feel so uncomfortable, but I guess his excuse makes sense. Has anyone ever had a similar situation? And what did you do? Yeah, this lady needs to get out of this relationship right now. No one keeps cameras pointed at their bed for insurance purposes. That is not how that works. This man is spying on her, 100%. Especially since there's cameras in the bathroom. You don't keep cameras in the bathroom. This is not normal behavior. This is a violation of privacy, and this lady needs to get out and get out fast. He's clearly lying, and she does not need to be with someone like that. My family is trying to control what I do with my new house, and it's driving me crazy. I get that everyone wants to help out, but sometimes I feel like I speak a different language and live in a different world than everyone else. I'm 90% sure my roof needs major renovation if I want it to be fully insulated and up to modern ecological standards. It's the sort of roof that has been repaired and improved over time, but now it's time for a complete redo. I just came out of an hour-long back and forth discussion with my parents about what I should do and how to do it and how all of this works, while I did my research already for credible roofing companies nearby. Even when I showed them 5 examples to show that nobody does free inspections anymore, they still didn't believe me. They tried their hardest to prove their point and find one that did free inspections, but it turns out they only did minor repairs and their online presence was shady and almost non-existing. It also seems like they have decided which company I should eventually work with to get solar panels. Then came the discussion with my aunt about furniture. I'm still 3 weeks away from getting the keys. Then we need to renovate almost half of the place, which will take 2 to 3 months. I barely know the dimensions of the living room, but she said,
"Just call the realtor. Ask them if they can stop by on Fridays. We did this as well."
Yeah, they did this as well, 15 years ago when the market wasn't so chaotic. I'm sure the realtor has plenty of time to spend half a day on a client that's already a done deal. I mean, he's a nice guy, but he's not going to spend more time on me than necessary. He has other things he needs to do. And don't get me started about the garden. I don't care what plants are in my garden and what I should add or remove. I'm going to live on my own in a 2 to 3 person house. I don't have time for a complicated garden. I'm going to hire a gardener to figure it out for me so that everything is low maintenance for the next 2 to 3 years. I lost count of how many times I said how I want my garden to look and function. Lastly, the rented boiler. I've had it up to here with people who have said that I should disassemble it and call the company to pick it up. It says in the contract that I can't do that or risk a fine on top of the regular disassembly costs. And no, I don't need you to help me disassemble it. It's going to be my rented boiler, and I will be the one that will have to pay the fine when you're the one that said, screw it, we'll do it ourselves. Every discussion with my family drives me to the point where yelling seems to be the only way to get them to stop for at least 6 hours. Then it starts all over again. I am so done with everything and everyone. And honestly, once I move into my house, I don't want to see anyone for anything for at least half a year. I'm not spending this much money on a house for everyone to walk all over me and tell me how to live my new life, telling me what to do and what sort of tiles to get, where and when, etc. It's driving me crazy. Yeah, it sounds like this lady has a family who is absolutely not minding their own business. I mean, this lady has her parents, her sisters and brothers, her aunt telling her how to run her house. I mean, that's just craziness. And it doesn't sound like she's not being firm with these people. I mean, she says it herself. It almost goes to yelling sometimes just to get them to stop, but they still consistently keep coming back. I mean, what is wrong with these people? Just give her some space. At the end of the day, I think everything will probably change once she finally moves into this new house, because then it will be hers and it won't be up for speculation or for other people to chime in and tell her how to run it. And that might be the best silver lining she can look forward to. My girlfriend of 8 years broke up with me, and then the next day she's begging to have me back. So my girlfriend and I have been together for 8 years. We met in college at 19, moved to California together, 3,000 miles away from family around 5 years ago. We have a condo and a dog together. We have ups and downs, some bad fights, but overall we are best friends and have a lot of love. Over the past few months, I've been struggling with my job. Paying for the expensive Southern California lifestyle has made things tight when it comes to our budget, which in turn made me really have to step up with the finances. My girlfriend has had pretty bad anxiety and panic attacks, so she went on Zoloft about 2 months ago. And it's helped with that, but I can't help but feel like she has significantly changed in ways that's not so good. Even her best friend says she feels like a different person and that she feels emotionless, like a stranger almost. Anyways, she's been discussing a break for a few months now, but we always work past it. And then we're doing so well talking about marriage and kids. Then a week goes by, everything settles, and it's back to a break. It's a cycle that keeps on repeating. Friday, she finally said that she is visiting her sister for the weekend, and when she gets back, we are going to take a break, and that she will be getting an Airbnb for the next month of April. She came back yesterday, sat down, and we had a heavy heart-to-heart, and she said she just wants to fully end things. She went on to say how she fell out of love. So she packed up her stuff, we hugged, and I went to a buddy's to decompress. An hour or so later, she calls me sobbing and having a full panic attack, saying she doesn't want to be there and she misses me and the dog. After a talk, she said she is going to stay in the Airbnb and that she is sorry for calling and making it harder on me. I feel like I'm watching the girl I love go through a full mental breakdown, and I'm not sure what to do. Yeah, this is a really sad situation. Panic attacks and anxiety and depression are really hard things to deal with, and it sounds like this guy's girlfriend is definitely going through it. I think there's a lot of things they could both work on, but it really sounds like his girlfriend needs to go to therapy. Just getting on some kind of medication to help with your depression or anxiety sometimes isn't enough. Overall, I hope she gets the help that she needs and that they're able to work this out. My parents keep asking me for money. I would first like to say I love my parents dearly. I always have. They've done so much for me, and I'd like to return the favor, but I'm starting to get frustrated. We've always struggled a bit with money, and I've been happy to help them in the past. But them saying, I promise this is the last time we will ask for money, is a sentence I keep hearing. When I was a teenager, I was given a nice chunk of settlement money after a bad car accident I was in. Since I was a minor when this happened, my parents knew all about the money I received. Once I turned 18 and had access to the money, they asked me to give them around $20,000 to help with bills and debt. My parents just raised me for 18 years. I mean, how could I deny it? I gave them the money without any hesitation. Then about a year later, they asked for $8,000 more because they were behind on bills again. I wasn't as enthused to help out, but they're my parents and I love them. The least I can do is help. Shortly after that, they said my brother's business was struggling and they needed about $10,000 to help him on his feet. I was never that close to my brother, but I felt obligated to help out. I just received another email from my mother asking for another $15,000 because my brother is starting to add his own debt to theirs. I feel guilty because I really do not want to send them any more. I'm forever grateful that they were able to get the money for me in the first place, but I really wish they didn't know about it. And realistically, I know I will not be seeing that money again. I expected it the first time they asked, and I had no issue with helping. I was happy to, but I hate the feeling like I'm stuck with either dropping thousands of dollars on something I'll never get again, or by feeling like an absolute jerk by telling my parents no. I feel like a horrible child for even hesitating, but this money is for my future. It's helped me with college and covering a lot of medical bills. I'm struggling to think of a response. Any advice would really be appreciated. It sounds like the parents have no concept of managing money properly. I mean, how do you get thousands of dollars behind on your bills? That's just irresponsible to a whole nother level. They probably looked at their teenage child as some kind of money cow that they could withdraw money from at any point. And that's absolutely not fair for their kid. That money is given to them for compensation because of a bad car accident. And the original poster said it best themselves. themselves. They need this money to cover medical bills and college. And if I were them, that's exactly what I would tell my parents. You just apologize and say, I'm sorry, I need to use this money for me. And then that's the end of it. If it goes further than that and they start to guilt trip you and really hammer it home that they need this money now, then at least you know exactly what you're going to be getting for the rest of your life. And then you can decide if you want any part of that. Personally, I wouldn't want to deal with that for a second and would much rather have my parents respect me as a human being with my own finances to manage how I please. My boyfriend has broken up with me, but he hasn't told me yet. I just found out that my boyfriend has informed his family that we've broken up, but not me. We've been seeing each other since 2018 and we became official in 2019. I found out because someone we both know told me after asking me how I was doing. I was so confused and glad I followed up. He came back from work. He seemed alright, told me a work story when he got home. I said he'd been acting funny, and he said he was alright when I prompted for more. I asked if he hated me, and he said no. I asked other questions where he behaved oddly, and he just chuckled and replied no each time. He's just left to go bowling with some work buddies. I can think of a dozen reasons and a separate dozen petty reasons he has yet to break up with me. I honestly can't drop it. I don't want to get the person into trouble. So how can I bring this up upon his return? I mean, this sounds like something you need to bring up sooner than later. Your boyfriend has already told his family that you're not going to be with him any longer. And the fact that he hasn't told you yet is a big red flag. Like you already know he doesn't want to be with you. So in my opinion, it's probably time to cut things loose. It's probably best to especially start thinking about your exit strategy. It's going to be very weird when this conversation comes up, so you got to know how you're going to get out and get your stuff and get going. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.